the mimetic weight of his McDonald's appearance was pretty crazy.
Oh, it's gargantuan.
Just the images of it are.
I can't believe it was staged. That's crazy.
I know. That really blew me away too.
Can you believe they closed the whole thing down? It's crazy. For the man that keeps getting shot at.
What do you mean? Nothing bad ever happens at McDonald's. Everybody, welcome back to episode 100 of Human Reaction, your weekly source for independent commentary on cultural news and politics, where it's always our mission to arm you with the tools you need to cut through media misdirection and resist the mono-narrative. Woo! It's a huge day here. We're going to celebrate with a little bit of champagne. Because that's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what we do. Guys, how are we feeling? Episode 100. Nicely done.
Episode 100.
It's pretty crazy. We've been doing this for like a year and a half now. It's
That's
crazy.
right. Almost 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're closer to 2 than you are a year and a half at this
Nice.
point.
All
shot.
over Joe's carpet.
You know what? This carpet has seen worse. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. It is a momentous occasion. It's not just a momentous occasion for us. It's a momentous occasion for you. We're so glad to have you here.
We did it.
We did it.
We're here.
Hard to
3
believe.
digits, y'all.
It's hard to believe that it was episode 86. Okay, this was 102 days ago that the first assassination attempt was committed against Donald Trump. Okay, and
Has it really been that long? Jeez.
it has. It's been 3 months, over 3 months. Can you believe that? And it's interesting to note that we have no clearer understanding of what happened on that day now than we did then. And on top of that, it's been 38 days, 5 episodes since the second attempt. Noting these facts is the perfect way to articulate what we are here for. And what we're here for is to, as we say in the intro, help you cut through media misdirection and resist the mono narrative. And so far, there really hasn't been any follow-up narrative to that. So we're going to keep doing what we're doing, and we appreciate you for supporting us along the way.
Motherfucker was CIA, but a little toast. There we go.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers, Bennett.
Bennett on the other side. Air cheers.
We're excited to say that going forward from episode 100, we're going to have a lot more content for you. After the election, after our live stream for the election, which we're going to be doing in, I guess, two Tuesdays from now, we're going to be bringing out more episodes per week. We're going to have more live streams. It's all going to be really cool. We're excited to bring you guys a lot more great content. Mm-hmm. So, David, what are we talking about today?
Today, we've reached peak election season with more campaign stunts than an Evel Knievel show.
Sweet.
Yeah. So
Butte boy, right?
all kinds of it. Yeah.
He's
It's
one
a
of us.
Montana reference.
He's one of us.
Yeah, he's one of us.
The corporate press go all in on a brand new strategy to take down Trump. This time, they're going to call him Hitler.
What?
Dang. Dude.
That
They
tempered
wouldn't-
rhetoric
They wouldn't dare.
really sticking around.
They would do that? That's crazy.
I couldn't see them doing that.
Too soon.
So early voting started about a week ago for most places. Absentee ballot has been out for 2 to 3 weeks in some places. And we're already getting some of those trickle in of the election integrity debate and talk about that, navigating that. So we have some of that. And then lastly, this week, U.S. intel leaked about an Israeli plan to attack Iran.
Again?
It was specifically new troop movements in another cycle. So we could be getting a preview of the next cycle of escalation between Israel and Iran. And in the skiff, we're interviewing Spencer Redmond on American Christianity in Israel, talking dispensationalism, Christian nationalism, and other topics. This week's skiff is a special one celebrating our 100th episode. We're going to be releasing it publicly. So everyone gets a look on the inside of our secure containment information facility work that we do for our members only, just for this week.
Yeah, in our skiff episodes, we tend to try to really dive deep into a singular topic. We kind of get away from the current event news and we dive into things like this that are historical significance, that are shaping the narratives of current life and American political life. But then also, like, we dive into some conspiracy theories. We get a little crazy in there.
Hopefully
We do.
we make it to episode 101.
Yeah.
Well, that's my concern because we're usually pretty freewheeling. I mean, if you've seen us on this show, I think you can maybe you can tell if you've seen Behind the Skiff already that we're a little bit looser on things. So we'll have to see how that compares now, knowing that it's going to be public.
Especially after the champagne.
Ooh, that's true.
It's just some additional election party announcement here, just some details. So remember, The 5th of November. So we're going to be live streaming the election that night starting 6 p.m. Mountain Time. So you'll be able to find it. We'll get it reserved on YouTube. We're going to have a new setup, probably new everything coming into that. And this is for our friends in Montana. You can come join us here at the studio. All you have to do is join the Discord and shoot us a direct message, and we can get you the information that you need. We don't just give out where our studio's at, just anybody. So you got to get in there.
That's how we get swatted.
Yeah.
It's actually going to be a scavenger hunt. You'll have to travel around town and discover the clues to find where the studio is. Those of you that know where it is, don't tell. Okay.
So shoot us messages on Discord and we can get you the address and make sure that you're all good to come in here. But also while you're in Discord, I would like to show you, go drop some dank memes for us.
Absolutely.
Every day I look at the meme page in the Discord and I have a few giggles to myself and it's very fun and I enjoy it. Sort of like this one. It's Donald Trump tweeting, "Whoever made this is getting deported." And it's a picture of him dressed as Ronald McDonald.
It's so funny.
But also, make sure to check out humanreactionpod.com and you can see all the ways to support us. You can become a member. You can join our Substack, our YouTube memberships or whatever. And
Get
also follow, subscribe, do all the things on whichever platform you're listening to us on.
Absolutely.
We would appreciate that on this 100th episode.
Yeah, please. A little gift to us for making it this far.
Our centennial episode.
Our centennial.
Yeah.
Before you know it, it's going to be 200. Because with more content, we're going to get there like 4 times as fast.
Well,
it'll be like
next year we'll hit that.
No, it'll be like May.
Yeah. Yeah, because since we're going to after the election here, so it's going to get a little rowdy. I thought you said that.
No, we've been teasing.
I just said more content.
Okay. Well, leaked. Oops.
Bleep that out, baby.
You should just put a bleep over everything I just said right there, because after the election, we're.
If you are a small business owner looking for exponential growth, you have to connect with Adam Thune at Intellectual Patriots. He will revolutionize your business game and help you get to the next level. Adam can streamline your business practices and advertising strategies to improve your bottom line. His expertise in data engineering means he can build you the systems you need to collect and analyze market data. His mission is to provide you with invaluable insights to fuel your success. From grant writing and business proposals to digital systems integrations, even AI management. Intellectual Patriots is a one-stop shop for cutting-edge solutions. Don't wait another second. Visit intelpatriots.com to learn more. That's INTEL patriots.com. This episode is brought to you by Revved Up Promo, the official apparel partner of Human Reaction. Revved Up is a premier full-service shop specializing in laser engraving, screen printing, and embroidery. Not only are they now making all of our apparel right down the road from us, they can do the same for your brand and ship it to you anywhere in the world. Revved Up helps you navigate the extensive universe of merch options and uses state-of-the-art techniques to showcase your brand in its very best light. So if you want to support our show and our generous sponsor, you can now do so by buying our merch and by turning to Revved Up Promo for your own custom apparel needs. Reach them at revveduppromo.com. That's with 2 V's and 2 P's, or just check the show notes for a link. All right, first story, David, kick us off.
Campaign stunts. Kyle, you did this one.
Yeah, I put all these notes together for this one,
my
so
mistake.
I'll do it. So we got a mashup of a lot of stunts. We're about 13 days out from the election right now, so everything's ramping up here, and we got stunts on both sides. We got Trump working at a McDonald's 30 minutes more than Kamala Harris did, allegedly. That's what he kept saying. So I'm assuming it's true. Politicians would never lie to me about that. And he also goes to barbershops and hangs out with a bunch of barbers. And it was actually kind of an interesting interview. And then Kamala, she put out an ad saying that men won't get dates if they don't vote.
Yes, I actually
was an interesting ad.
I had friends send me screenshots of some of the ads they got on social media, dating apps. It's really interesting campaign tactic.
And also,
betas.
and also, Eminem's not afraid to express himself if Kamala wins.
Not afraid.
Not afraid.
Yeah. Okay.
But let's jump into.
It kind of worked. It worked.
The first stuff I got queued up was actually a pretty interesting dialogue from Trump. I queued up 2 clips from it, and the first one is a barber here talking about how his energy costs have skyrocketed in the last few years.
So how has your rent been? So where was it like 5 years ago, the rent?
I mean, the rent was significantly lower. Now it's gone up about 1,200 since.
Yeah, it's okay. It's a big increase.
My issue was more the energy. I've been paying $2,100 since I first opened up. In the last 7 months, it shot up to 15,000.
Whoa!
What?
It's 15,000.
What?
And that's
You went from 2,100
to 15,000 in this establishment. Yeah.
How many heads can you take care of? That's a lot, right?
We're just saying phrasing it.
So what? From 2,100 to 15,000.
Yeah.
So there's an example though. Energy, right? So energy, when that comes down, ready? I almost hate to say because you'd be at 7,000, right? But your energy bill from January 20th, if I win, we gotta win. And we're gonna, by the way, and we're in New York, and these guys love New York. If we win, oh, I love this guy. Look at that. Give me that hat. I'm gonna sign it. Come on, give me that hat.
He gets kind of derailed there, but it is interesting to hear just from a barber in New York talking about his energy costs went up from what was it, like
2,100 to 15,000.
That seemed very authentic and like a guy really just expressing something that's happening in his life. It didn't seem, and I would call it out if it didn't. It seemed very much like a real person struggling with something, bringing it and talking to the president about it. That was really interesting. It seemed it was well placed, if not.
Also, just Trump's response, what? What? Like Trump was shocked by that. He was like, what?
I was shocked by that.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
insane.
What is that percent increase? That's crazy.
That's like a 7x.
Yeah.
Jeez, it's insane.
Yeah, but and that was kind of the nature of this. That's been kind of the nature of a lot of the Trump stunts lately. Is there's a lot of people just giving genuine kind of reactions to people, just being like. And I think that's what people appreciate about the Trump dynamic over the Kamala dynamic. Is there's like Trump is giving more authentic reactions where Kamala is always very scripted, right? And I think that's where most of the people that like Trump. That's what they like from him. And then also the people that don't like Trump, oftentimes authentic reactions get like, yeah, it's a shithole country. And, those types of things, right?
Yeah, right.
But there's those moments where it feels like he's kind of like listening to the person where he's just like, whoa.
Yeah. Wow, fascinating. All right, let's keep that second clip.
Yeah, the next one here is about federal taxes.
The future and the future generation, my kids' generation.
Yeah.
A lot of people are worried that attaining the American dream at this point in time and in the near future is going to be unattainable for this upcoming generation, which I have kids that are part of that generation.
How many kids you have?
I have two, a 17 and an 18-year-old.
Good.
Now, I believe one of the biggest hurdles we have when it comes to attaining that American dream is overtaxation.
Yeah.
When it comes to federal taxes,
right.
I know we're going to bring back, I'm sure you're going to start back up the pipeline,
right.
The Keystone Pipeline,
in 2 minutes.
which is going to generate an abundance of revenue.
Right.
Also with the tariffs that you've spoken of. So my question is, with all this extra revenue we're going to be bringing into the country, so do you believe at some point in time we could find a way, once the country's back on its feet and getting enough revenue and paid off our debt, do you think it's possible to find a way to eliminate federal taxes?
There is a way.
And how do you feel about it?
In the old days when we were smart, when we were a smart country, in the 1890s and all, this is when the country was relatively the richest it ever was. It had all tariffs. It didn't have an income tax.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Now we have income taxes, and we have people that are dying. They're paying tax, and they don't have the money to pay the tax. No. In the old days, 1890, 1880, we had so much money, they had to set up committees, blue ribbon committees, how to spend our wealth. We had no idea how to spend it with so much money. Then we went to the income tax system, and the rest is sort of history. But no, there is a way. I mean, if what I'm planning comes out, it's a great question, by the way.
Everyone could attain the
You're a pretty
American
sophisticated cat,
Everyone could attain the American dream if it wasn't for the high cost, the burden of high taxes, and we're taxed at every step of the way.
Yeah.
When we make it, when we spend
regulations.
it.
And regulations. So I cut more regulations in 4 years than any other president by 4 times. Yeah, let's go. You would ask one question.
So Trump has a plan to eliminate federal taxes.
Well, he wants to move things more towards it's more of an ambition, but also it seems to me
it's a concept of a plan.
His model is much more shift towards tariffs as a revenue source rather than income tax, right? And that's why he's bringing up the 1880, 1890 thing.
So I'm curious, David, because you've been critical of Trump's focus on tariffs as a trade policy in the past. Does this balance of getting rid of federal taxes and replacing them with tariffs appeal to you more, or do you still see holes in the idea?
Well, you can conceptualize a low income tax, high tariff regime as a transition from an income tax to a consumption tax on foreign goods.
Sure.
That's a more honest way to think about tariffs, at least, than as if China was paying the tariffs, because they're not. We do.
They're just going to raise the prices that they charge us, and we're going to pay more when we buy things from China.
Yeah. So and that phenomena of tax pass-through is like standard economic thinking. So it's usually in the defense of that standard economic thinking that you would say, okay, that's a problem. Now, one of the reasons why we have the explosion of wealth after World War II is the lowering of tariff barriers globally. One of the reasons why the Great Depression was as bad as it was that we increased tariffs. At the same time, we were increasing income taxes and creating more taxes domestically during the Great Depression. So those sorts of things are the trade-offs you have to navigate. Now, there's no such thing as a moral tax, in my belief. Like
they're all immoral.
The most moral tax, the most equitable tax, the best tax is a head tax, period.
What's that?
Everyone pays the same amount.
Flat tax.
You're over 18. No, not by income, by a fee, right?
Oh.
It's $200 a year to be a citizen. Or $1,000 a year or whatever. And that's the only one that's fair, because it treats everybody the same. It says everyone's the same. Now that has trade-offs, right? The poor are going to pay more disproportionately the income than the rich, right?
Which is why I think people would prefer much more of like a percentage rate, but it's more everybody has the same percentage rate or something like that.
Right. And if you can do that by taxes, that has certain advantages, right? If you do it by percentage rate, but then you also have the other alternative. You have all the perverse incentives of that kind of tax regime, because then you have an incentive to raise taxes on the people that you aren't and keep your taxes of the people who are low. And that's why most people don't pay federal income tax to this right now, because of deductions and for basically for the same economic and political public choice theory purposes of shifting tax burden onto people you don't like.
It's worth mentioning, too, when the income tax was originally introduced in 1913, because we didn't have income taxes until 1913, and that's kind of what Trump's referencing there, is we didn't have it in the late 1800s. There was 5 brackets, and the lowest bracket was 1%, the second bracket was 2%, and all the way up to the 5th bracket, which was 5%. Jeez. That was the income tax. And the argument that was made is it would never go higher than this. This is just like, it's World War I stuff. We got to pay for the war. It's never going to go higher than that. And then within
You're
like a decade or two, the highest bracket went to 90%.
Yes.
Wow.
No,
and then it got brought down to like 60%. And then it, like,
oh, we're so grateful it's only 60%.
Yeah.
Gosh.
But so the benefits of a consumption tax is the other question to that, right? And the benefits of consumption tax is you can avoid it, right? By basically saying I'm not going to consume less and therefore save more and therefore avoid taxation.
Oh, you are going to consume less. You're going to buy fewer things and save more money.
You can, in theory, right?
Yeah.
That's the idea. And then of course, what they are going to prefer from the industrial planning is it gives an advantage to domestic producers over foreign producers. Now, the trick about that is that as a component of the policy has a trade-off, and that is greater total wealth. Here's why. The origin of wealth is not the amount of money you have. It's not the size of your domestic economy even. It's the size of the total ability to deliver goods and services to people.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
When you increase the division of labor, having more people with those trade-offs and increase of specialization, that is the fundamental flywheel of wealth as a concept of the provision of goods and services to people.
So you're saying by having China specialize in making certain goods and we buy those, they appear on our shoreline at our ports cheaper than if we were making them here, and we're overall more prosperous because we're spending less money on the things we need to buy.
Right. And my fear is, and this isn't a fear for Donald Trump per se, because he has, if you can rely on anything, he has actually executed well on regulatory stuff. Now, he didn't do statutory regulatory reform, right? So if the first thing Donald Trump did when he first came into office is pass the REINS Act, I'd feel much more confidence about this.
What's
but
that?
He didn't. The REINS Act is a bill that would restrain the executive agency's ability to pass more rules into the executive
so
code.
Burdening businesses, burdening individuals.
Basically what it says
regulation.
is that in order to propose a new regulation, you have to do an economic impact assessment of it. And then if it exceeds a certain threshold, that has to then be voted on by Congress.
I see.
Right. So then minor rules can have changes as long as they have minor economic impact. Major rules need the consent of Congress to pass. And then you actually have a political process for advancement of new rules. You can do that so that to get rid of rules don't require an economic impact statement. Those align the incentives to beware of the regulatory state. So if paired with that, if paired with other things, you can make a sensible argument there. But recognizing the trade-offs, it is possible that a greater tariff regime has certain benefits and certain minuses if you get rid of income taxes. I don't think you do. My biggest fear is that we get the income taxes, we get some executive regulatory reform, meaning the executive branch repeals regulations and maybe doesn't advance as many regulations as they otherwise would, say under the Kamala regime. And then we also get income taxes, and maybe we get slightly lower income taxes. That's probably the best we can hope for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
And I think that's a more realistic assessment of the situation. In that environment, greater tariffs I don't think it's going to benefit us that much. I think it's going to harm more than it helps. But if that is met with a lot of regulatory reform, because our biggest problem to me, sorry guys, I'm going on long here. The biggest problem to me is not whether or not we tariff and other people do, right? Our biggest problem is that we created the EPA, right? And that we have the EPA to deal with. So if you want to build something new, you have to do an national environmental impact statement that takes years and years to do, and a tremendous amount of bureaucracy, and then it's always legal for liable, lawsuits afterwards.
Right, because that's not necessarily like a direct tax per se, but it's a cost that companies have to bear that they then have to reflect in their prices that they charge for whatever it is they're selling.
And China ain't doing that shit. Right. So that's where their advantage comes from. It doesn't come from their lower wages, because we can make robots that can do it cheaper than any person in China can. We can compete with these other countries. We're not so weak that we can't. The only reason we do is because we take as a given the regulatory structure that undermines our ability to compete. Oh, to me, and additionally, that a lot of the myths around jobs going overseas to China, some of that's true, not all of it's true.
But there's also the added thing there now too, is if we have Elon and Vivek and people like that in this like regulatory cutting committee, the Doge committee, right? Then we're just, in theory, we're going to be seeing a lot of that stuff at the executive branch getting slashed, assuming there's not all these hurdles and there will be all these hurdles that come in. That is the thing, is a lot of these things are ambitions. Remember that. Right. And one of your biggest fears here, Dave, I think is like, okay, there's going to be this thing that is like the thing that we're supposed to replace the income tax with, but we don't get lower income tax rates. So then it ends up being a whole problem there, right?
Which don't get me wrong. Like, if you have a high confidence in Trump, you might not share that principle. It's just, to me, I'm just jaded because I've been in this a long time, and what I've seen for the most part is government grows, it doesn't shrink. And not without statutory reform. And that's what I want to see. I want to see bills, man. I want to see Congress passing laws that restrain the executive forever, not the executive being really good for 4 years and then we're right back where we started. We did regulatory reform during the Bill Clinton administration, for God's sakes. What happened to that?
How can we expect Congress to do that when they are basically under threat from the DOJ, from the department, or the intelligence agencies? Like, that seems like a really strong counter incentive for them to do anything beneficial, restraining the executive branch.
I mean, I don't know about the intelligence agencies after that. I think at the CIC that could be true. I think it'd be intelligence agency reform, right? But I think you're right, is that Congress is much more sensitive to lobbying pressure once they're in office. Donald Trump was going to go in. He's going to have 4 years, and then he's done. Constitutionally, he can't do any more after that. So
he's going to be a dictator on day one.
The question is what's his legacy then? That will be important for him, I imagine. If we're forecasting ahead, I could see like, okay, to what degree is legacy going to mean statutory changes that go after him? Or is it going to be, I'm just going to make sure Don Jr. can run and win and hopefully continue on my legacy? That's a positive incentive for us to keep this power. That's the perverse incentive of executive branch regulatory reform as opposed to code legislative branch.
Well, that's also why the post-Trump era is such an important thing to think about, and this big tent that's forming, because that's what we're talking about for decades of change, because these things can't all happen under 4 years. Right. And there's going to be Democrats that win in between those decades, but we got to reshape the American right in such a way where these things can occur and they continue to winning to the point where they can occur. And the ideology and the philosophy has to be maintained, because there's going to be neocons trying to creep back in, and there's going to be all these like takeovers that are happening, and the sheep within politics are going to just move with whatever the commentariat class puts them towards. Yeah. Right. And so you got to continue to maintain that focus there.
Absolutely. Well, a great example of that would be like the Cheneys, endorsing Kamala. And our next clip here is Tim Walz on The Daily Show talking about that very thing.
The Cheney thing Do we really have to do that?
Look, it goes broader than that. Look, Bernie Sanders, Dick Cheney, Taylor Swift.
No.
That one. The shooting?
No.
Having the Cheneys on board?
Nah. You can't Dick Cheney or Taylor Swift. No.
I don't know. You might be able to.
Big
What country did Taylor Swift get us to invade? No.
No, don't you think, though, that, and I do this, I believe this, there is still a core group of folks out there, your point being, and not joke, that the don't tread on me, the Reagan piece of this, the libertarian piece, but the constitutional piece, there are a lot of people out there. I think Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney give permission to those folks who want to find a reason to do the right thing.
The Cheney thing.
Wait,
doesn't Dick Cheney give you the permission, Joe, to get on board with her?
No, I thought you were going to say the heebie-jeebies, and I was going to say yes, so I jumped the gun on that. No, props to Jon Stewart for pushing back on that. Like, he's saying what all the Democrats should be saying to themselves, which is, wasn't this the guy who helped George Bush lie us into war in Iraq?
Wasn't this the guy that the war criminal of Halliburton?
Yeah.
Like, isn't that the guy?
The guy who shot his friend with a shotgun? Come on.
And then his friend apologized for getting in the way.
I mean, Dick Cheney was the biggest villain of the left forever, right? Like, if you came up in politics in the 2000s, like 2002 to 2010, like he was persona non grata. I mean, Republicans ran away from him. Yeah, he was the Hitler of that era, right? George Bush was this bumbling idiot, and Dick Cheney was evil, Darth Plagueis behind him, actually pulling the strings behind the scenes.
Totally.
Joe's like, yeah, Darth, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I was just thinking Joe didn't get the right.
Nerds. You're all nerds.
Here's another one here, and it's worth mentioning because there's a lot of talk going on about different billionaires and who they're siding with. You got the Elon Musks on the right, and you got the Mark Cubans and Bill Gates on the left, right? But here's Tim Walz at a rally who has some choice words for Elon.
Well, look, I'm not going to waste all the time I'm in. I'm going to talk about his running mate. His running mate, Elon Musk.
He's so funny.
Great comedic timing.
Where is Senator Vance after he got asked the simplest question in the world at the debate? Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election? And after 2 weeks, he finally said, no, he didn't. That's where he's been spending his time. But that's it. So, look, Elon's on that stage, jumping around, skipping like a dipshit.
Wait, what?
Okay, pause it right there. Pause it right there. Have we already forgotten Tim Walz's entrance to the DNC and almost every other speech he's ever given? I think Elon was doing a Tim Walz impression.
That's actually, I think Elon said that.
Oh, did he?
What he was doing.
I was totally just making a joke, but that's
I know somebody said that to me, is that Elon was doing a Tim Walz impression. Like, I don't know if that's actually true, but I had somebody say that to me.
I think they should both go on Dancing with the Stars and have a dance off.
Have a dance off. That would be pretty funny.
That would be crazy.
Please no.
So yeah, I mean, what a non-substantive criticism. He had other ones, such as said that he doesn't even know what venture capitalists do. They just ship jobs overseas. Venture capitalists ship jobs.
I feel like that's a bit of a. I mean, you're just kind of showing your ignorance.
I mean, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I mean, as the guy who's vying for the second highest job in the country, shouldn't you know what venture capitalists do? It's a pretty decent part of our economy.
He's a football coach. That's all you need to know. He's a down-home country football coach.
What did he say during the debate with the China question? He's a dummy sometimes or something like that.
Look, I'm kind of a dummy sometimes. Sometimes I speak out of hand.
He's just being a dummy.
Yeah, my wife says I don't have good grammar.
I don't have good grammar. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, pretty underwhelming guy, just generally. But, I think...
I'm kind of retarded.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting dynamic of how we're currently assessing the election cycle that brings up, which is that there is... The alignment of the billionaire class and how they're selecting is, unlike other election cycles, way more out front and in the visibility of everyday people. And this is like a trend that started, 6 years ago, where the kind of exposure of and then talking about who the billionaires are supporting became a bigger and bigger part of the election cycle. And then additionally that you have them all buying media companies. Elon bought X. What's his name? Amazon. Bezos bought Washington Post.
Soros bought a bunch of local papers around the country.
Yeah,
and radio
tons.
stations.
You had this effort to control narrative dynamics by using the big capital to do so. That phenomena is now kind of coming into the limelight. It's like itself is being featured as a major reason. People like select which billionaire you like, and then I don't know even how that's working.
Choose your fighter.
Yeah, right.
How's that for a nerd reference?
Yeah, there you
Come
go.
on.
But there's also an element too of which billionaires you're supposed to kind of hate versus which billionaires like just
way
kind
more
of get
so.
the blind eye.
Which is weird
right?
that the left is so like you're calling Elon a dipshit. This was the golden child. He was
doing
loved.
he's doing
beloved
electric vehicles and things
by the
like
left.
that, right?
Yeah.
He was the big environmentalist hero for a long time.
He's definitely fallen out of grace with a lot of the Democrats that I still associate with, and I suppose there aren't that many anymore. Really, it's not my choice, but anyway, it seems like Elon is like not someone that they hold in high regard any longer. Obviously,
Well, it was strange to me because I remember some time ago when he launched that rocket into space and he put like the guy in the Tesla car in it and launched that out.
Oh yeah.
That was a great time.
Yeah, right. So when that happened, he got a bunch of shit for it. And they're like, "Why aren't you fixing global poverty rather than shooting bullshit into space?" And he was like, "Because I like rockets. I don't know what to tell you."
And also, like, wasn't the thing? It was like, yeah, world hunger could be solved with like $100 million, and you're spending billions on this or that. And he's like, well, then why haven't we done it? It's only $100 million.
Why don't we just print $100 million?
The government just sent that much money to Ukraine last month or whatever.
Or 10x that. I mean,
I feel like he asked for like a legitimate plan and he would pay it, and they never did it.
Of course,
from Congress.
Well, and that's how all these plans always go. It's just like, well, if you just do this, then everything will be fixed. And it's just like, that's not how that works. It's just not how that works.
Turns out the world's complicated.
Yeah. Look at like, it's sort of like homelessness in California. It's like, we could just give everybody houses. It messes up the entire economy. And there's a whole industry that is like very focused on not fixing the problem because they're benefiting greatly off of it.
Yeah, they're all
and that's what,
six-figure
all this like disaster porn is really just filling the pockets of a lot of people in these industries.
Don't be noticing.
But if we give them all permission to go to McDonald's and get some fries from the commander-in-chief himself,
then they get
Former.
Coli.
We'll get to that. But here's so Donald Trump, he did a totally real
authentic
event.
He filled out a job application at a McDonald's in Pennsylvania. He got hired. It was a close call. I don't think he quite had the qualifications they were looking for.
This was his training day. Here he is training on the fries.
That's right.
Actually.
We gotta hit that timer, bring that one up. I'm gonna take care of these. Okay.
Now, I gotta say, he really shows up to work dressed well,
Yeah, see?
Dude, there's so much mimetic energy that just exists here. Dude's just like walking mean. It's crazy.
Right there.
Imagine working at McDonald's and being like, hey, by the way, the president's
You gotta train the president how to make fries.
That guy really combed his goatee extra well this morning.
You want to do the salt over here?
It's just got the three.
He gets to do the salt.
That one right there. So grab that.
Give him extra salt.
And for the audio listeners, like it is what you think. Donald Trump is pouring salt into the fries right now, and he's about to start scooping up the fries into the McDonald's holder.
Well, listen to this.
And this is one of my favorites.
We gotta hit that timer.
Oh, it actually cut that part. The part after that is Donald Trump being like, "Wow, you don't even touch it with your hands or anything."
No, he goes like, into the box, never touches the human hand. Hands the fries to the guy.
There's a moment where he's in the drive-thru and the fake news is out there asking him questions, and he's just like, it's incredible. I always thought that you come through and they're just like taking it with their hands and putting it in. It's not like that at all. You can tell. I saw a tweet that said something around the lines of, "You can tell that Donald Trump has thought about this for decades, and now he's finally been like, whew, it's hygienic, nice."
I also like how he's like, should we give him extra salt? And the kid's like, no. It's like, dude, nice.
And then
just tell him
here's one more, because then he goes and works the drive-thru, and there's people that come up and he hands them the meals.
A lot of fun here, everybody.
Oh my God!
Look at all the fake news of it.
Look at all the fake news.
You can fake this,
And
right?
this is compliments of Trump, okay?
Yes, thank you.
But also, you have no idea what's in these bags.
Please don't let the United States become Brazil, my native Brazil.
We'll keep it
Please,
good.
Please.
We're going to make it better than ever, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, Mr.
Compliments
President.
of Trump.
Yes.
Have a good time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you over there. Have a good time.
Now, did you know?
Bye, darling.
This was news to me. I just learned this thanks to the corporate press. Those people were pre-selected to go through that line. Did you guys have any idea?
You know, it's crazy. Yeah, you know, thinking about it, I did find it crazy that they would let randoms come in for the guy that keeps getting shot at.
Yeah.
Especially since he's in Pennsylvania again.
That's true. It's a high-risk state for him at this point. We've kind of shown that.
So that's scripted, huh?
I guess so.
My favorite part of all this is that it's just a troll to Kamala.
It is
which
true.
is so funny.
That's one of the things too. That there's a clip, I didn't pull it, but the news outside is just like, "How are you feeling about this?" He's like, "Well, I've now worked 15 minutes more at McDonald's than Kamala."
So I actually got a picture. I'm bringing it up. I put it in there for you, Kyle, on who was rejected from going through the drive-through with Trump.
Oh no!
Just so you know, who wasn't selected.
I can't wait to see what this is.
One second. Let me just get a little higher. Yeah, he tried to make it clear.
For our audio-only listeners, that is I forget his first name. Ryan Routh, the second attempted assassin.
Was Ryan the second, or was that the first?
He was the second.
Oh yeah. He's
the
the one.
first was
He's
Crooks.
the one
Yeah, it
still
was
alive.
Crooks.
Thomas Crooks.
He's the guy that should actually have testimony.
This was
on
the
his-
Ukraine guy.
Yeah.
Didn't make it through the line, huh? Weird.
It's just like
Yeah, and I just want to show some of these images. Like, there's always been something about Trump where he just has these Trump tweeted this image out. It's him at the drive-thru waving.
75 million views. Holy cow.
It's crazy.
It's a great ad for McDonald's right there.
You know, make America healthy again.
He really, to me, he looks a lot like Dave Thomas, the founder of Wendy's, in that picture.
Yeah, he does.
I'm like, oh man, like he could be a fast food tycoon too.
Like-
maybe he's found a new line of work. You know,
Like these high quality images, just him out handing the fries. Like it's pretty good campaigning. Like him in his classic pose talking to the workers.
Yeah.
His tie matches so well.
Spreading it
with
out.
The colors.
it really does.
It's Ronald McDonald out here. You know, there's something about that quality that Trump has, where it's just like, for some reason, every photo of him is just like, I don't know. It's like a walking meme every single time.
Is it like
It's
a
very-
showmanship thing? Like he's really good at holding his face,
Maybe.
winning camera in a
Yeah.
way that it just gets consistently good shots. I don't know. It's crazy.
I mean, wouldn't you say that every photo that Kamala takes is also kind of a meme too?
Maybe for a different reason.
I mean, maybe for a different reason, but you know,
I don't know.
Could also be true.
There's something about it. It's the authenticity of the moment, how it feels. I don't know. But of course, the left has to spin it some way. So how they spun it was that Walz accused Trump of disrespecting workers by cosplaying at McDonald's. That was the snapback from Tim Walz.
it's an appeal to the furries as well. He loves to cosplay. I went to Comic-Con. He's going to Comic-Con next, I heard. Yeah.
I think that's in the summer, isn't it?
Look, I have no idea.
I just know because Penguins make a showing there.
Of course they do.
And then there was some other efforts by the corporate press to manipulate the situation.
Yeah, so we have Trump is up in the polls after working at McDonald's, and then it's the left going, release the E. coli stories.
And it's CBS News. It was the one I found. I didn't find, what would you say it was? It was Newsweek?
Yeah, so the big one was actually Newsweek, and they tweeted this out, and this tweet has been since deleted by Newsweek, but they put out an article, and what they headlined it on Twitter was, the CDC has reported 49 E. coli cases across 10 states with 10 hospitalizations and 1 death. And then it shows a picture of the headline here. It's a picture of Trump in the drive-thru, and is the McDonald's Trump worked at part of E. coli quarter pounder outbreak?
Really?
There was not a single case in Pennsylvania. It happened before the Trump event.
Oh my
Most of the cases were in Colorado. And so they deleted this tweet. And even, I went and read the article. It even says in the article, there's no evidence that any of the McDonald's nearby where Trump was had any E. coli. But this is how they're...
Newsweek's just asking questions, right? It's just a question.
Is
was
the McDonald's Trump worked at
Maybe-
part of the E. coli quarter
Was
pounder
it?
outbreak? I don't know. Better click my article and find out. And this is a perfect case for why you should not click this article, just keep scrolling because they don't deserve your attention. But really, if you're going to like be reciting news, you need to click into the article and actually read it to know that it was actually in Colorado or Nebraska or Kansas or wherever it was and not in Pennsylvania. Like, this to me goes beyond just clickbait. And now it's like using clickbait to kind of influence an election in a way, right? Like it's just like, you could say, okay, yeah, like using clickbait, headlines is a tactic to get people to read your article, and that's one thing. But this is just dishonest.
Yeah, there's a differentiation to make between salesmanship and like putting things into packages that are easy to consume and get people interested in what you want to talk about, so you can deliver value to them.
Right.
And literal bullshit clickbait.
Yes.
And
You're full
especially
of shit today.
Especially from. There's
so
a big
is my
difference.
Burger, apparently.
Yeah. Newsweek has literally the word news in it. It's supposed to be reporting about real things that happen, not speculation about things that might have happened if the world was completely different than the way it is.
Yes.
Right?
Does that make you angry, David?
No, I'm perfectly calm.
Okay, just checking.
Not today.
This is why a friend convinced me at one point. I used to always be like, I'm just going to follow everybody and just like, I got to see what the enemies are always saying. But then eventually a few years ago, a friend convinced me, just use this bot and it'll just block every single New York Times reporter on your account.
And your life has been wonderful ever since.
It has been amazing. It has been amazing. Now I need the same thing for Newsweek. It did get me in trouble one time because I ended up in a group chat with a New York Times journalist and he couldn't get into the group chat because I had him blocked.
Jokes on you.
I was like, yeah, everybody's like, does somebody have this guy blocked? And I was like, I don't know. And then I went and looked and he was like, oh, he's a New York Times tech journalist.
So what's Kamala's circus events? What's her stunts?
So we covered last week her appeal to black men. Just like, oh, you're a black man making crypto transactions, we'll get you protected. Like that type of stuff, right?
Marijuana?
You want marijuana? You want drugs?
Jesus Christ. The funny thing is the way you guys say it sounds so racist. But they're the ones saying it. You're summarizing their racism. So especially once you discover that she's not black.
Thank you, Candace Owens.
Yeah, there's some speculation. I would never say it, but some people are saying it.
I'm just asking questions, really. That's what it is.
Like, I hear people are saying it. I would never say it.
Is Kamala
though.
black?
I don't know.
Is this our version of clickbait headlines?
I'm actually imitating Trump. That's what Trump said. He's like, I don't know about the specific topic. I think it was like on Andrew Schultz. He's like, well, I would never say it, but I hear some people are saying it.
Well, what was the black journalist thing he went to? He's like, all of a sudden she's black.
She's like, she kept saying she was one thing, and then all of a sudden she's a black person.
Black person.
But so she put out her thing for Latino men and their families. Now we have. Her tweet says, Donald Trump has disrespected and insulted Latino men and communities. As president, I will invest in them. And she says, Kamala Harris will deliver real changes for Latino men and their families. Help 2 million workers, incling Latino men. It's like, this isn't even particular. It's just like, Latino men are also going to be a part of this.
We know you work. We know you get jobs. Good job. What the fuck?
Make them get good paying jobs and get ahead in their careers by supporting new training opportunities. Help Latino men and others, So it's like, it's not even a plan for Latino men. It's just Latino men and others. Start and grow small businesses with no interest loans or deferred loan repayments and fully forgivable loans of up to $20,000. More than double the number of first-time Latino homeowners each year to 600,000 with $25,000 in down payment assistance for first-time home buyers.
Isn't that her plan for everyone, though?
Yeah, it seems that way.
This is, once again, it's literally just copy-pasting the other thing.
But then inserting, instead of for people, it's just for Latino men.
Yeah, right.
Expand the child tax credit for 18 million Latino children and provide $6,000 for new parents to purchase cribs, diapers, and other essentials, which is also her plan just for everybody.
We know you got kids, Latinos. We know how you like making babies. What the fuck?
And then,
isn't that racist?
And then the last thing here is cover the cost of long-term home care through Medicare to help families care for aging parents and grandparents and keep them in their homes. She just forgot about Latino men in that last one.
Didn't even bother putting it in that one.
Wow.
Remember when there weren't so many?
I didn't want to get us canceled. So.
Get us canceled on our 100th episode. Thank you.
I think what's long since been canceled.
What's so funny about that is to the degree it was like a macro that just put in the other thing, and they didn't mention the marijuana thing. What was up with that?
Was
because that
That's a really
associates
good
them.
They don't enjoy marijuana. I know white people do.
I think that associates.
deliver it.
I think there's a negative. Yeah, I was gonna say I think there's a negative stereotype there that's associating them with cartels, probably. And there was probably a strategic decision by a communications person that no, we cannot put that line in there because of cartels in Mexico.
It's worse.
That probably
once you
happened.
avoid it, it makes it worse, doesn't it? Isn't it more racist once you say we can't talk about it now?
yes.
Yeah. Yes. Only if you notice.
Well, that's true.
Quit
I am
noticing.
doing noticing, but
That is the thing with the black men. I believe like I make the cryptocurrency one because that's like my area. But I believe that there is statistics on there that is like black men disproportionately are much more involved in crypto than other minority groups. So I think that's why they put that one in there. Right?
Interesting. Well, I'm happy to say that next week we'll be unveiling Kamala's policy positions for white men. Can you guys
think
wait
that's
for
gonna
that?
happen?
White man for Kamala.
We're gonna announce it.
That's not gonna
We're
happen.
gonna announce
Oh, we're gonna
exactly
make our
what it
own.
is, and it's gonna be great.
That would be a
You're
great
gonna see
idea.
it. You're
That's
gonna
a
see
good
it.
one, yeah.
We'll have it next episode.
All of their wives lovers, as Trump said.
Don't give it away. Don't give it away. This is breaking news. No one's seen it yet.
It's for your wives.
We're unveiling it next week.
That's what Trump said at the Al Smith dinner.
No, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make one of them that tax breaks for your
tax
wife's
breaks.
lovers. Yeah,
No,
there we go.
we're not making anything. We're just reporting the news.
Right, correct.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
We would never do that.
No.
It's
Is
crazy
this
that
Kamala's
they have to-
policy positions?
asking
You have to click and find out.
It's crazy how much they have to target men after demonizing them for the last like 8
Well,
years.
and that's the next thing is that we have this Kamala ad here, which this is actually a very trendy YouTube thing. There's a lot of big content creators that do this whole thing where it's like they have the white background and they do this dating
Yeah.
show like this. So they're echoing that.
They have balloons.
Well, I think they're just like making up. It's like, oh, you kind of get the game.
No,
if you
I've seen
watch
a
it.
thing with balloons like that before. And they like pop them. If I'm not interested, I pop the balloon.
It's an analogy for male genitalia.
Yeah. So
Why is it so red?
so here is the ad that they
Should it
put
be kind
out.
of dark and hairy? If that's never mind.
This-
Go ahead.
Here is the ad that they put out for the Get Out the Vote efforts.
Sorry.
Hello, ladies. I'm Trey. It's good to be here.
Hey, Trey.
Hey.
So, what do you do and how much do you make?
I work in finance, making six figures.
How tall are you?
6'5".
Okay. Do you work out?
I like to stay active. Yeah.
Do you have a plan to vote?
I didn't plan on it.
Don't get popped, it says. Vote election day, November 5th.
Vote Harris Wells.
I just think of it with the balloon.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's like a trending dating thing. Is that what you're saying? That's what that is?
Yeah, it's like a big thing that you have like entire channels that have become like million subscriber channels based off of this type of content.
Huh.
And so they're echoing that type of viral
And obviously
YouTube content.
it's another part of we're weak among single black men. That's probably the polling background there, right?
It's definitely the casting choice.
You have the black men's policy prescription plate that we reviewed last week. What that shows is a fundamental sea change that we're probably underestimating that, right? The black community, black men specifically, have been staunch Democratic voter base since the 1960s.
Exactly.
Why is that changing now? That's an incredible change.
Well, and also we're seeing the Latino men thing here too.
Much
so
less-
they're worried about minority men in particular.
Right.
And I think it goes into Newsweek.
Hold on, before we go, I have one right here that a friend sent to me. I just want to share. This is on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious what it's referencing because I haven't seen it.
Oh, you haven't no, these are like really trendy YouTube.
Well, I mean,
videos.
I think I have, but
Yeah.
I don't think I understand. I don't think I understood it.
This is an Instagram ad. I'll send it to Bennett so we can throw it into the show here. But it says, all the single ladies are backing Kamala. Unmarried women make up a whopping 25% of the electorate, and that's bad news for Donald Trump.
Huh. Yeah, well, that's the gender divide thing that's in the Newsweek article here. Trump versus Harris poised to be the largest gender divide in election history, and it's crazy. I mean, it's like a
20-point spread.
Yeah,
we've men versus women.
We've reported this interesting phenomenon, especially the younger you get, the more bifurcated the partisanship. And I think what that might mean, right? If Kamala wins, it's going to be probably that dynamic, right? Because married women are the number one swing demographic in the United States.
For sure.
Especially white women. So if there's a greater gender divide and Donald Trump's picking up more minority male votes, is that enough to make up the difference? That's like a fundamental, that might be like the political science major research question for the election cycle this year.
I mean, and another question, we have white dudes for Harris. Is there not a Karens for Kamala group that's been formed?
Cat ladies for Kamala.
Cat ladies for Kamala?
Same.
Okay, same thing. All right.
That's
good. I
literally
just want
what
to make sure
Taylor
they're being
Swift did.
represented because
She signed her thing like childless cat ladies was her signature.
Well, that was the thing with all of these celebrities. It wasn't just Taylor Swift that
Did
did
you say
it.
Aubrey Plaza?
Yeah,
from
like I
last
saw
episode?
a bunch of these images of like female celebrities. They all did the same Taylor Swift thing on the same day at the same time, where they're holding up their cats.
Well, my Instagram feed started blowing up with black guys responding to Obama for like the misogyny comments, like being basically telling Obama to fuck himself.
We need more support from the brothers.
Yeah, and they were very upset. I saw like 15 to 20 reaction videos.
Wow. So according to this, in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, there's a 35-point gender gap between Kamala and Donald Trump.
Well,
35 points.
So meaning
that's
women
huge.
are overwhelmingly supporting Kamala and men supporting Trump.
Well, there's also, because really the biggest spread I believe right now the biggest spread, and historically has been the case over recent elections, is college educated versus not college educated. But that spread of college educated versus non-college educated also has a gender divide.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
True.
isn't that kind of the same?
One of my things here though is one, it's a bigger loss to lose all women than to gain minority men.
Yeah,
nominally in number wise, right? So if Donald Trump's support amongst women is 35%, that's really negative. That's really a problem. That and oh man, is this true? I think it's true. You have to check me on this, but I'm pretty confident women have a higher voting rate than men.
I feel like
turnout wise.
That my instinct tells me that's true. Probably.
Yeah. That was something I learned a long time ago. But yeah, that's fascinating because
and it's also a dynamic here of
is it just
Trump,
abortion? Is it? Yeah. Is that it? Oh,
no,
no.
That's the biggest issue.
But
on polling, that's the biggest issue.
Yes,
for women,
because if you poll on issue support, women rank abortion much higher, and abortion's the dividing line on this. Yeah. And it's crazy because it's not a federal issue anymore that they would still care, but they're still like holding him to account for that. So part of the question is, will this trail after? Like, is this a partisanship identification that's long-standing, or is this just Donald Trump, him being a pussy grabber and him hating abortion that we're actually reacting to? I'm serious about that. That comment probably still has more resonance than anything he could say about the economy.
Cat ladies for Harris. Yeah.
I mean, you could literally have him be up there being like, "Hey, we got to avoid nuclear war," and like, "I don't care. You grabbed that pussy at one time."
Dude,
you know what I mean?
It's so funny that you mentioned that because
a bigger dynamic.
In the text thread where I got this article or ad sent to me, one of the people in it said, "So wait, women aren't voting for Donald? Grab him by the pussy, Trump?" Like, yeah, that's still definitely part of the zeitgeist, obviously.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, and it comes in and is like, I think in general, older married women often are much more okay with Trump, but it's kind of like the middle age and younger women
because they kind of want to get grabbed by that pussy.
No,
sorry.
In general, married women are more likely to be Republican.
We're definitely not making it to one-on-one.
They're not cat ladies.
Yeah.
Right?
To be clear, this is not the skiff episode yet, but we're treating it like it is. It must be the champagne.
It must be the dynamic.
I have some numbers for you on voter turnout. 63% voter turnout is female to 59.5% of males. So it is about 3.5% higher.
That's in a close election. That's everything. That's a lot.
Another thing I was looking at in Nevada, my understanding is Trump is way outperforming early voting in Nevada than he normally does. Doesn't necessarily mean that, because like it could just mean that they've done better early voting efforts, and there still might be the same stuff. But he's also doing pretty well in Michigan and North Carolina, I think was where I saw the polls right now. But I did see in Nevada in particularly, it was like kind of a surprising, like, ooh, Trump's early voting numbers are really strong right now, or Republican early voting.
And I can really see next week, we will really dive into our election predictions, where it's going to go and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The last stuff on the election shenanigans here is there's actually a lot of the celebrity stuff going on with Kamala Harris rallies.
This one hurts me the most.
There was like Usher came out, P. Diddy Usher. He came out for Kamala. We have.
Is that how we're gonna just like label these people now? As like, oh yeah, you mean Epstein Gates? Yeah, for sure.
Epstein
P. Diddy Usher, absolutely.
It's like, oh, you mean Bill Gates? Like, oh well, he's dead now. Talking about Epstein.
Well, he's dead now, so
it doesn't matter.
So we have Eminem came out to introduce Barack Obama, and here's what that looked like in Detroit. And I'm going to speak over Not Afraid going because I'm worried about DMCA.
We're already going to get tagged for the Comedy Central clip, so it's fine.
So look, I wrote down a few things I wanted to say. I love you too. Thank you. I'm here tonight for a couple of important reasons. As most of you know, the city of Detroit and the whole state of Michigan mean a lot to me.
I love how he checked his notes right before that.
What did they tell me to say here?
He's a freestyle rapper. How is he so bad at this?
The spotlight is on us more than ever, and I think it's important to use your voice. So I'm encouraging everybody to get out and vote, please.
He's a reclusive guy, though. Like, he's a pretty introverted
I also
recluse.
think that people shouldn't be afraid to express their opinions. And I don't think anyone wants an America where people are worried about retribution or what people will do if you make your opinion known. I think Vice President Harris supports a future for this country where these freedoms and many others will be protected and upheld. And here to tell you much more about that, President Barack Obama.
Yeah, so he introduces Obama, and then I'll bring up the Obama clip after. But
that was written by a campaign staffer, right?
I think Eminem got the call, and he had to come in and do this.
He got the call.
He got the Diddy call.
The Diddy call.
The Diddy phone rang, and he had to answer.
I don't know if he's I would really hope not.
The internet has drummed up. You haven't seen this, Bennett.
We're about to ruin Eminem for you, buddy.
I'm a big Eminem fan. I know. Like I've listened to Eminem my whole life.
I mean, you know what Eminem stands for, right?
Don't.
Men and minors. Come on. I am so grounded.
Well, and so the internet's been drumming up these images of this is Ray Chandler, Ghislaine Maxwell's child procurement specialist.
What? What? Go on.
I don't.
What are you talking about?
This is. I think this is before her time with Ghislaine Maxwell. It's like this is her talking about it when she was like 17 or 16 or something like that. She got invited. That's she worked with Ghislaine Maxwell.
What's her name?
Ray Chandler.
It's a chick named Ray Chandler. Mm-hmm. And this is when she was 17 or 16?
Yeah, she met Eminem. So a lot of people are bringing up that image. I'm just people are saying things, and I'm just reporting what people are saying. So,
is Eminem really? I don't know.
Erroneous.
It's a specious connection at best with their current evidence.
But all I know is never trust a woman with two male first names.
But there was also there's a thing talking about Eminem introducing Obama, and Elon Musk tweeted, "Yet another Diddy party participant." But Eminem in his lyrics has always been pretty critical of Diddy. He's called out Diddy and made allusions to him killing Tupac on multiple occasions.
Fair point.
That's kind of like the rap zeitgeist, though.
Especially on his most recent album, too.
But there's also an element here, too, of, like, remember, he is a Detroit guy, and also he had a lot of problems with Republicans in his early career. He was battling with Bush's FEC during his career. It's like, the FEC won't let me be, like that whole song, right? Like that's a pretty big.
Yeah, in the 1990s, early 90s especially, but mid 90s and then into I would say 1999. Tipper Gore, the second lady, to the vice president. I mean, obviously Al Gore's wife, was the thrust of the censorship regime throughout the 90s. Video games, music, all that stuff, to make it family friendly.
That was the root of the parental advisory on explicit records and stuff like that too, wasn't it?
Yep. So it's funny, like to make it that partisan of that's a choice. Like you got to decide that the real bad guys are the Republicans, and then hold on to that forever. And I just.
But a lot of Eminem's problems were in the 2000s. That being said, too.
That's true.
His rise to fame was in the 2000s.
Fair enough. Yeah. I don't know. I just it's kind of a low IQ take in my opinion. I mean, at the end of the day, just because right now the people who are going after other people for having the wrong political opinions are not the right. Right?
Oh yeah, no. He said here under Kamala, he'd be like okay with expressing himself, and you don't have to be afraid.
And this is the same guy who said fuck his own, supporters who also support Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Like that's maybe the music video in 2016 or
it was the like freestyle he did. He did a cipher.
Yeah. I know that was 2020, or was it 2016?
That's an awfully hot coffee pot. Wasn't that the lyric? I was like, that's an awfully hot coffee pot.
Yeah,
Should I dump it on Donald Trump? Probably not. I think it was like something like that.
God, it was bad. Yeah. So I don't know. I just think he's partisan and he doesn't want to admit it, and just
doesn't want to admit it. Isn't he admitting it?
Well, I don't know. Like it just that
was also weird. I remember 1 or 2 albums ago
that he's a victim of Republicans is what I mean. Like he was just a Democrat. Just admit it. Don't be.
He's just a chill Democrat.
Yeah, I mean, he's always been. He got famous when he was criticizing Bush. Like very critical of Bush. So I mean, he's always been left.
Well, maybe he should move to England
that was
like the Green Day guys did.
All of Hollywood at that time, right? It became cool to be anti-Bush. So everyone was making anti-Bush songs at the end of his career. And then Obama became president. Everyone just forgot about opposing the establishment and the government and all that stuff, even though exact same policies were in place.
Yeah, it's just one of those things with Eminem is he's often kind of known as being this reclusive guy that kind of stays away from a lot of the Hollywood stuff. Like he's kind of known for being a recluse that just stays in Detroit and kind of like he doesn't do like massive big tours and do all the like limelight stuff. And he's also like best friends with 50, who's like the guy putting the documentary on Diddy out, right?
That's also
like,
why I'm like,
there's a dynamic there that you're like, it's kind of an interesting dynamic.
I don't know how much
exists.
how much he was hanging around Diddy.
Yeah.
With that relationship with 50 Cent.
And 50 Cent is just like an interesting character. He works with Trump a bunch. He does that. He's just an interesting character. And Eminem and him are like bros, right? Yeah.
I think our headline just reads, is every pop star that shows up at a Kamala rally on Diddy's list? Click to find out.
Well, and here is then the Obama entrance for it. And I will say the crowd's loving this. Like it's a high energy crowd on this moment.
Hello, Detroit! You fired up? Are you ready to go? Yeah. Hey, I've got to say, let me just say, let me just say, I gotta say, I've done a lot of rallies, so I don't usually get nervous. But I was feeling some kind of way following Eminem. I mean, I notice my palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. Vomit on my sweater already, mom's spaghetti. I'm nervous, but on the surface I look calm and ready to drop bombs, but I keep on forgetting.
Have you had enough, Joe?
Yes.
Joe is over here just like
copyrighted for that.
we're not going to get copyrighted for that one unless Obama's put the record out.
So this episode's not even going to make it to the internet.
That's how
apparently.
you just wind up drowned in 3 feet water,
naked
beach
outside of Obama's mansion. Yeah. Whatever happened to that guy, by the way?
I don't know.
Interesting question.
Heard it might have been like a gay lover or something. I don't know. People are saying that.
Haven't really heard much from the media about it.
Just look it up.
I wouldn't say that, but people are saying that.
People are saying it.
So Obama also came out and basically said this week that it's just how ridiculous, just how partisan everything has become, just how contentious everything's become, how divided our country is. Really lamenting it. Now, one of the traditions of American politics is after you're president, you don't stick around. You do Jimmy Carter and
You get a library named after you. You write a book, and you fade off into the sunset.
And then you start painting.
You start painting, right? Or you build houses, right? Jimmy Carter actually has quite the legacy that he built for himself after that on that. But
I heard
Obama
he voted early as well.
Unlike most of his predecessors, including the blood-soaked war criminal George W. Bush, is sticking around and keeps doing fundraisers and is currently participating in all the division. Not to mention, I think when people look back at Obama's legacy, when they see the last 4 years, as soon as the Republicans controlled the House and the Senate, he pretty much became the most divisive president of our era, in the sense that he no longer pursued any policy change. He pretty much just went to war with Republicans for the entire time, rhetorically. He spent his presidency running for office while he couldn't run for office anymore. And I think if anyone could take any ownership of that, it should be him. Because so much of our current racial politics, of our current partisan politics, of all these things come from the Obama regime's inability to at all compromise and work with the people across the aisle. Unlike Bill Clinton, who did exactly the opposite. When he lost the House and the Senate in the Republican Revolution in 1994, he came up with regulatory reform, entitlement reform. They balanced the budget together. They did all kinds of great work together with a Democratic president. Jimmy Carter lost the House of
Clinton also tried to
House of Representatives and passed transportation reform that year before he left office in the second 2 years. Why couldn't Obama? Well, because he's the most partisan, most liberal Democrat we've ever had as president, and refused to work with the opposite side for the American people. So I mean whatever that was. His comments on that really pissed me off, because it just takes advantage of the public's ignorance of what it really meant for him to literally do nothing for the last 4 years of his office and just run against Republicans.
Did it piss you off, David?
Yeah, it made me mad.
We're really just trying to bait Dave.
Oh no! Too late. Too slow.
You can't do it. All right, we just popped that.
Yeah, and the last stuff here is it's stuff that hasn't happened this week, but to be on the radar is Joe Rogan is hosting Donald Trump on Friday.
Wait, you blew right by a thing I just added.
Joe wants to show Jimmy Carter.
Oh,
who looks like you.
Sorry, that wasn't.
Since we've mentioned Jimmy Carter a bunch.
Jimmy Carter looks like you unwrapped a mummy.
Thank you, Ben. That is exactly, for the audio listeners, what we're looking at here. This is a clip of Kamala saying, if Jimmy Carter can vote early, so can you.
So look, if Jimmy Carter can vote early, you can
Jesus
too.
Catatonic.
Oh, man. That's terrifying. Oh.
So look.
Wait, is that actually Jimmy Carter?
Oh, yeah. I saw when that video came out. It's pretty crazy.
I didn't realize he was in that state.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like he didn't vote. Like it wasn't him.
Well, no, he did. I mean,
well, he's voting Democrat. Like we can.
I know. But like he did not actually.
He wasn't cognizant for it.
Yes, exactly.
Someone moved his hand.
I didn't realize Jimmy Carter was in that state right now. Like I always hear these stories in recent years of, but I guess a lot of these would have been like 8 years ago or so, of like people seeing him on planes. Like he's always on like commercial flights and things like that. So like I always hear, it always seems like he's doing okay health wise, but I guess I haven't heard it from anything in a while. I didn't realize this was the state he was in.
It happens fast. It does happen
for
fast.
the audio only listeners. Like
he looks like a mummy.
He looks like a mummy, like on a, it's.
Yeah, I believe they call that the death mask. Anyway, moving on to Joe Rogan and Trump.
Yeah, just to be on the radar is Donald Trump's going to be on the biggest podcast in the world, the Joe Rogan Experience, on Friday. There's been rumors that the Kamala camp's been talking with them, but I hear that that's fallen through.
I did see that, and I saw. In fact, I think I sent it to you guys this morning that she has declined to appear on Rogan and on the All In podcast, according to David Sachs.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really? I didn't hear the All In podcast thing.
Which Donald Trump was also on earlier in the year.
Also a really good episode. It was one of those ones that I think really solidified a lot, because the All In podcast, that's a lot of high dollar viewers on that, and a lot of people in the tech industry, and that's where a lot of the formulation of him and the dissident Silicon Valley folks came together, was with that All In podcast appearance.
Yeah.
So
of course the corporate press covers that as Trump cancels all his events in favor of one of the worst people ever.
Yeah, and the article was written by kind of who you would think it would be.
And in her bio on the New York Times reporter, in her bio, it says something like, I've tried every shade of pink hair. So
Yeah.
Just take that however you will. We're just noticing.
We're just, it's what you would expect. But
I look forward to covering that next week when we come back and after the Trump Joe Rogan, because it's either going to be awesome or it's going to be disastrous for the Trump campaign. It can go either way. It really depends on how he approaches it.
I will say, like, his recent appearances on Andrew Schultz's podcast, Flagrant, was really good.
Theo Von?
Theo Von was really good, but like Theo Von's viewers are probably very right-wing coded, I would say. And then also his appearance with Patrick Bet-David recently was also like really good. But that's also going to be a more right-wing audience. Podcast space is often very right-wing audience though too.
I don't expect Joe Rogan to pull punches from this interview.
Right.
Secondly, I would
hope not.
Well, I would too. I mean, I want him to get real answers out of him as much as is possible. But another question that I have is, like, all of Joe Rogan's podcasts are 2 to 3 hours long. Is this one going to be 2 to 3 hours long?
I could see Trump doing 2 hours. That'll probably what they schedule for. Rogan's done like with Bernie for an hour and things like that before, but it usually is always a statement of like, you have to make it to 3 hours on Rogan. But what it'll probably end up being is something like 2 hours. That's what I imagine.
I bet an hour and a half to 2.
I would be worried about that for Trump just because his speeches go so long. I mean, most politicians can't talk as long as he does.
I just wonder, because he speaks kind of in such...
He weaves.
He weaves a lot into a short amount of time generally. Right. So like what will they get into in the latter reaches of that interview?
I'll be curious what the things that I'll be curious what the things are that Rogan asks him about, because like there's got to be so many things that are in Rogan's head of, like, especially in the more conspiratorial realm of the Trump administration. Like, I'll be curious where that conversation goes.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be out in the middle of nowhere hunting this weekend, and I couldn't have picked a worse opening weekend to, they couldn't have picked a better day.
The internet lives forever. So
I know, but I don't want to miss out on the moment. So I have a Garmin InReach. You guys have to just text it to me. It'll cost me $400, but you guys have to just text me.
Just so you can get updates on the Rogan interview.
Yeah. Yeah, I just have to be in the loop for you guys, because I got to fill you in on what's going on.
So while the media online has been this tit for tat, this back and forth on these campaign stunts, the corporate press has come out hard early this week on this narrative of Trump being a Nazi. Now, as I was building this, I was noticing all these narratives arriving.
You shouldn't notice things.
And, by this morning, it's already kind of been formulated that there was a multi-pronged hit piece kind of cascade that happened. The Atlantic's editor-in-chief wrote a hit piece claiming, quote, "I need the kind of generals that Hitler had," end quote, quoting Trump. The claims in the articles have been disputed by multiple people he claimed is lying for political gain. The article details the murder of Army Private Vanessa Guillen, her family's interaction with Donald Trump, and the claims that Trump made a racist remark about the cost of her funeral, which he allegedly refused to pay. The piece also explores Trump's general disdain for military service. That's the summary. So, based on 2 anonymous sources, this editor-in-chief, this is the editor-in-chief. This is the guy who's responsible for making sure the Atlantic is a quality, standard, high-reporting newspaper, basically put out this thing. It immediately created a backlash, including Mark Meadows, who was Trump's chief of staff, who said he was there. And it's a hit piece.
His exact tweet says, "I was in the discussions featured in the Atlantic's latest hit piece against President Trump. Let me say this. Any suggestion that President Trump disparaged Miss Guillen or refused to pay for her funeral expenses is absolutely false. He was nothing but kind, gracious, and wanted to make sure that the military and the U.S. government did right by Vanessa Guillen." Is it Guillen?
I believe it's Guillen. Yes.
I believe it's Guillen.
And you guys obviously don't watch a lot of baseball.
I'm hooked on phonics. There was also Kash Patel, defense. He was the defense chief of staff, also denied this. Myra Guillen? Guillen.
Is the sister?
Is the sister of the victim. Basically called out the Atlantic for politicizing her sister's death for politics. It was hurtful and disrespectful. He said President Trump did nothing but show respect for my family and Vanessa. In fact, she voted for President Trump that day. Her lawyer, who was also in some of these conversations, was part of the lobbying for the, what was it called? Vanessa Guillen Act, which was an act to reform the way that the military deals with sexual harassment and like stalking and like those sorts of claims, because this was seen as like an escalation from a previous sexual harassment defense. I mean, she also said that this is BS. This is what happened. The military covered the cost of this thing. Trump didn't have to, that sort of thing. And I'm trying to go through this quicker than we originally built it, just because the first segment went long. I think the more interesting component of this is we do have this tit for tat. Obviously, the other chief of staff has a reason to defend Trump. The sister who is dealing with this doesn't have the same kind of reasoning. It's obviously like problematic that the sister is saying you're politicizing my sister's death. Doesn't make the Atlantic look good, that's for sure.
They've always been a mouthpiece for this type of hit job.
Yeah, I mean, they've done plenty to make themselves look bad.
Yeah.
Anyway,
they've always been this type of outlet.
The question is who is Jeffrey Goldberg? And a little bit about that. Don't be like that. He's been the editor of The Atlantic since 2016.
So be like what?
He's a Woodrow Wilson scholar. Now, I did link one of their pieces just to give you a sense of what the Woodrow Wilson scholars look like as far as the, that's his bio. Ukraine and Europe. And I go down a little bit. Read this headline. Why Russia is more likely to go nuclear if Ukraine is if it's winning in Ukraine. Now, think about the logic of that. Russia is more likely to go nuclear if it is winning. That makes no fucking sense whatsoever.
Yeah, how do they justify that?
It doesn't.
You're full of shit today.
Not as important, but the whole point is obviously this is generating backwards from we want an argument for why it's safer for nuclear war for us to invest in Ukraine than us doing what we're currently doing, which is obviously shooting rockets deeper and deeper into Russia, putting it at threat. Even though all the statements of Russia are, if we're at threat, we will use nukes. Even if that's all their statements, that's not really true. Actually, what's really true is if we don't win, they will use nuclear weapons. So that's the Woodrow Wilson Institute. And as
great
a New Yorker,
guy, by the way, great guy.
And the
Woodrow
real
Wilson, one of our best presidents, really.
If you look at the greats, the reasons that the media is responsible for the war in Iraq, Jeffrey Goldberg is at the heart of it. As a reporter for the New Yorker at the time, he was the leader in the conspiracy theory that Saddam had something to do with 9/11.
Really?
He's the leader of that. Yeah.
Does that make you mad, David?
I'm already kind of upset. fairly percolated. If only because there was no punishment for this. Think about it. He wrote this bullshit in 2002. Be-clowned himself and the newspaper when we discovered there's no weapons of mass destruction. We discovered that Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with Al-Qaeda's actions. It isn't Iraq.
Was Saddam not pulling babies out of incubators?
It isn't Iraq that is censored out of the 9/11 Commission's report about things. It's Saudi Arabia. So while that's happening, Jeffrey Goldberg publishes this bullshit. We go to war, million people die, thousands, tens of thousands of American service members die for nothing. Destabilize the Middle East, create ISIS.
Go, David.
I can't do it over it. I just want to listen to also the awesome metal. And then he becomes the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic.
Joe, it should make you mad because this was published on St. Patrick's Day.
Disrespect. The disrespect.
And the question is why? Why was this guy put in charge of The Atlantic in 2016? Well, guess who owns The Atlantic? Steve Jobs' Widow. Isn't that what I said?
Window? I thought you said window.
Widow.
It's like those windows. His windows high dollar value.
Whistle.
Steve Jobs' Windows? Is this like a crossover project between
Bill
Apple
Gates.
and...
We have this tweet here, Kyle, on the owner of The Atlantic on narrative control. You don't have it up, buddy. Sorry, on the notes. So Steve Jobs was a major Democrat donor, $6 million to Hillary Clinton. And this is her comments on why she bought The Atlantic.
It was pretty obvious to me that we could build.
That's Jobs' widow?
Yeah, we
She's the one who gives Kamala the look when she's like, we got to stay woke.
Way.
She's the one sitting next to Kamala.
Work,
really? You're right.
Capital investing and policy and philanthropy. And we could do this work forever and ever, and we could have the narrative overtaken by someone who has a lot of power, who's completely contrary to us, and we could never get to the place where we think we're part of a more just and equal society. And so it was obvious that if we could be part of the creation of cultural narrative that would enhance and amplify all the work that we're doing.
Which is Hillary Clinton talked about today, is telling the story, getting the content out there.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So these are early days for us, but that's the idea behind it. We want to inspire the kind of stories that we'd like to see told.
Do you ever see you buying something bigger, like the New York Times, for example?
Is it for sale?
It could be for you.
Guys, go back to the 3-up shot. Do you think they didn't like coordinate this ahead of time? They didn't call each other and be like, "Oh, you guys, somebody's got to change."
Oh, let's dive into this. What is the fashion critique, Joe?
Fashion segment.
We need music for his fashion segment.
First of all, black is my favorite color, so props to that.
For newer listeners, Joe has long been a critic of female politicians and their fashion sense.
I see nothing wrong with this. This is all great.
He does like a good pantsuit.
I do love a good pantsuit.
Usually it was around when Nikki Haley was wearing bathrobes to the debate.
Or loungewear. Yeah. And if we need to pull up pictures to throw over the episode here, so you know that I'm not out of place.
Stop giving me more work to do.
Joe's always he's always appreciated. This has been a consistent theme of his fashion criticism. He's always liked a good pantsuit. He likes a powerful woman.
Is this Kara Fisher?
And I like black.
I
like black.
The woman on the left, not the widow.
I believe, yeah, that is Kara Fisher. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is Kara Fisher. Yeah, I forget what she looks like. I just know I hate her.
Yeah, I agree. She's absolutely.
I just know her on Twitter. It's like I know her name.
And sorry, I didn't actually say her. Her name is Lorene Powell Jobs. That's the name of the widow.
This is funny though because
Powell?
I'm pretty sure this is the exact event or whatever where Kamala's just like cackling and saying we have to stay more woke.
Yeah, I think this is the same event.
It's just like the Jobs' widow just like, what the fuck is going on? Like just like giving her a weird look.
Might have just been an interesting still frame because it feels like she probably is in agreement with that.
Maybe so. To the real commentary, David, what did you think of this the statement by
basically
Lorene
to
Powell
translate it out of whatever that was? It was we invest in charities to try to make the world better, but we can't make the world better without manipulating the public. Therefore, I bought a magazine called The Atlantic. That's what it was. That was the entire. That was what it was.
I did a thing,
girl boss. So like that.
Oh my God, we're never making it to air. This is not going out
with Steve's money.
Would he be pleased with it? How was Steve Jobs politically? Was he like kind of agnostic to politics, or like did he have a worldview around that stuff?
I don't know.
You're the Apple fanboy. You should tell us.
Well, I haven't like read his biography.
He died
or
before
something.
I was like super politically engaged, so I don't.
Yeah, I guess I don't really know. I'm just curious. Is he turning over in his grave? Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know, but
he's probably voting Democrat.
It's just.
That took me a second.
That's good.
That was good.
Well done,
really
sir.
Good. That was really good.
Okay, so you just have this sequence of events of this hack neocon reporter guy. Neocon's probably not the right word, but anyways, just basically fed into the whole Iraq war narrative, who is hired in 2016, the year of Donald Trump coming up for election, his first presidential run. Who then runs this article that is based upon two anonymous sources, denied by everyone who was in the room other than his anonymous sources. And then, these are the same people who won't report Seymour Hersh's stuff because it's based on anonymous sources. So that's like an obvious hypocrisy and a double standard. And then on top of that, you have this lady who exists, is best friends with Hillary Clinton, who owns the newspaper, donated to her, and is now supporting Kamala, of course. Runs this article with no accountability whatsoever to the actual standards of reporting. This is why the corporate press is dying. This is why. You have this person who's doing this specifically to manipulate the public, not to inform, not to empower, not to help, not to make sure democracy doesn't die in darkness, but rather just to benefit her philosophy of equity in the future. And unfortunately, that usually gets paired with so we can keep global hegemony going overseas forever. And Donald Trump's a problem for that. For the exact same reason that Hillary Clinton's for equity and justice and all these things, plus global equality of the U.S. global hegemony.
You said you weren't sure if Jeffrey Goldberg was a neocon or not. I mean, like, you just got to look at his Wikipedia page and you see everything. You need to know. Full on neo, bro.
He could be a neoliberal, is what I meant. I don't know. He could be otherwise.
According to his Wikipedia, like, Zionism is his entire thing.
Oh,
so it's
look, just like frat bros, kind of like would hang out with other fraternities. Neolibs and neocons can be neo bros, right?
Yes.
It doesn't. We don't have to discriminate. Okay.
Neo Bros is my favorite bit.
So
you're welcome, Bennett.
At the same time, Der Spiegel dropped one on Elon, claimed that Elon was the number 2 threat, Trump being number 1, suggesting that Trump and Elon wanted to disintegrate liberal democracy and establish a Fourth Reich. Not kidding. Now, we don't have time to actually do into the video reaction, but that also dropped at the same time. So this is kind of part of the same narrative formation. And then another one on the New York Times dropped. As election nears, Kelly warns Trump. This is Kelly, who is the former chief of staff for Trump. John Kelly would rule like a dictator. He said Trump would rule like a dictator. The Trump White House longest-serving chief of staff said that he believes Donald Trump met the definition of a fascist, with the most leading question ever is like, hey, do you think Trump is a fascist? And he goes, well, if you read it in the dictionary, this is what a fascist is. I mean, it sounds like it's weird, dude. It's really fucking weird.
I mean, by the definition of fascism, just America as a whole is generally pretty fascistic. Like, it seems like after World War II, like or actually even pre-World War II, we took a very fascistic turn. Like, and all fascism is just like the merging of the private sector and the public sector by putting like agencies on top of various different industries, and like that's what we have. Like, so it's like by that definition, it's like everybody is a fascist.
Yeah,
now,
that's
right?
that's the technical definition. Yeah. It's the Webster's Dictionary manipulated definition that it reads even more hilariously.
Oh, it means that he wants to kill all the Jews or something.
No.
Is that what it was?
I mean, I have a definition. Tell me what you think of this. This is from American Heritage Dictionary of the English Language, 5th edition. Fascism is a noun. A system of government.
Say it in a sentence.
Could you spell that, please? No. A system of government marked by centralization of authority under a dictator, a capitalist economy subject to stringent government controls, violent suppression of the opposition, and typically a policy of belligerent nationalism and racism. Is that accurate, or is that manipulated?
The racism thing is kind of like I read Mussolini's book on fascism, which was ghostwritten by Giovanni, who's kind of like the father of fascism. It's like the racism thing. It's not really like it's much more the centralized merging of getting all the best things of capitalism, but then also having like the centralized directional control of having a centralized system. And then you can manipulate the industries, and everybody is like very much top down setting the rules, but then everybody gets to play within those rules type of dynamic.
It's actually a little bit more than that. It's the cartelization of large industry without removing the ownership of private sector ownership of that cartel. Does that make sense? Sure. So you have to in order to understand fascism and progressivism of that era and where these ideas come from, you have to understand that it arose as a third way philosophy between laissez-faire capitalism, which said all private property is privately owned. So your business doesn't have to cooperate with the state and in fact can do its own thing. You say you can't trade with this company and your business goes, no, I'm going to trade with that company. Who are you? Right? Those sorts of bias towards the business owner to make the decisions for its business will in net be good for everybody. That's laissez-faire. The Marxist, the kind of totalitarian Marxist regime was everything is publicly owned by the state. And that has all kinds of problems that go along with that, right? So the fascist idea was, well, we want everything to be privately owned, but we want it all headed in the direction as established by the state. So everything is in the state, nothing is outside the state's direction, including what you're allowed to sell. So, for example, Hitler, bans all kinds of products that he believes were unhealthy for the German public. Does that make sense? We're going to cartelize all the auto industries. We're going to start new auto industries. We're going to create all these ways of trying to encourage German industry using industrial planning, and then under a cartel structure, right? You don't get to start it and not be part of the cartel structure. You can't be independent from the German state's directive in those things. Same thing with Italy. You take nationalized industries, you actually privatize them, but then you make sure that whoever that private owner is has someone they directly report to. That's the state, right? So we are so put into the progressive mindset, we can't tell the difference between progressivism and fascism because we don't even know what laissez-faire is anymore. We can't even conceptualize it for most people. You can't conceptualize being able to start a business without getting permission from the government. But that was the standard before the progressive era. The standard was like, what, you need a license for that? Are you kidding me? You need a license to practice medicine? Are you insane? Those
Go f- yourself.
those sorts of that difference has to be taken into account. And that's why we get so bent up and not understanding economic policy of that. The way they define it is this is the belief in hierarchy. Is how fascism is described by this guy.
Well, and here's also this is also why we talk about mythologies all the time, and the mythologies that are set in kind of the underpinnings of our American political life. And one of those is how everything has just kind of come to be and we just accept those as the reality, like licensing structures and things like that. We didn't have marriage licenses before 1920, but now we have marriage licenses. It's just the thing you do, right? Like before there was no real involvement between the state and the couple getting married.
Right.
It was usually just a church phenomenon. You went and got a witness at the church, but there wasn't this state apparatus that came in for racial discrimination purposes by the progressives, because the progressives want to say they're not the fascists, but the progressive era, they were going and they were looking at oh man, those guys over in Germany, they got some good ideas. And they were bringing in people from Germany to help them orchestrate their policies and things like that. But it is funny, I just looked up fascism on Wikipedia, and it is interesting how much the racial Nazism has merged in with fascism in this, where it's fascism's extreme authoritarianism and nationalism often manifest as a belief in racial purity of a master race, usually blended with some variant of racism or discrimination against the demonized others, such as Jews, homosexuals, transgender people, ethnic minorities, or immigrants. These ideas have motivated fascist regimes to commit massacres, forced sterilizations, deportations, and genocides. So that's the way that they feel. But when we got to look at what the progressives were doing in the early 1900s is they were putting forth eugenics programs. They were doing mass sterilization programs. They were out sterilizing prisoners. They were doing all of these things, right? And it's just and it's no, the progressives are the fascists. They are the same thing. And they always have been. But instead they're no, we're for equality and we're for there's become this narrative and this fabricated mythology around
it. It's the American version of it, right? That relies on the American mythos and actually takes most of its inspiration from Christian nationalism of the preceding era. It was actually a Christian argument by Christians to say that we need to make the world a better place. That's where we're going to ban alcohol. We're going to do it. Those guys got together with the cartelizers and the people who wanted to drive the third way in economics, who got together with the only way to do that is to go to war so that we can have war socialism and build a permanent war socialism economy. So these three branches meet together that create the progressive movement functionally. Wilsonian pro-war, pro-empire people.
Woodrow Wilson, great guy. Great guy,
one of the best.
Wow, we got
one of the best in American history, really. That's people have been saying that.
That's right. I mean, I wouldn't say that, but people have been saying that.
I actually would. No, he is the worst president that we have ever had.
Yeah, to be clear.
All of the worst things that happened under Woodrow Wilson, and they have kind of created the environment that we have today because of it.
So one of the things that says in the article, and I just wanted to point this out, is the question is asked, quote, he said he was deeply troubled by Trump's recent comments about using the military against domestic opponents. When Mr. Kelly left the White House in 2019, he decided that he would speak out on the record only if Mr. Trump said something that he found deeply troubling or involved him and was wildly inaccurate. Mr. Trump's recent comments about using the military against what he called the enemy within were so dangerous, he said, that he felt he had to speak out. Quote, and I think this issue of using the military on or going after American citizens is one of those things I think is very, very bad thing. Even to say it for political purposes to get elected, I think it's very, very bad. What's he talking about there? Did Trump say he was going to use the military against his opponents?
Did he?
Well,
dictator on day one.
I'll give you guys the option. Do you want me to summarize it, or do you actually want to watch it? It's about 2 minute long video.
Let's watch it.
It's in the right side of the comments there. Should be timestamped.
Yeah, I gotcha.
But I'm just wondering if these outside agitators will start up on election day. Let's say you win. I mean, let's remember you've got 50,000 Chinese nationals in this country in the last couple of years. Yeah. You have people on the terrorist watch list, 350 in the last couple of years. You got, like you said, 13,000 murderers and 15,000 rapists. Right. What are you expecting? Joe Biden said he doesn't think it's going to be a peaceful election day.
Well, he doesn't have any idea what's happening in all fairness. He spends most of his day sleeping. I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of election day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
You told me back in February that you were going to rent out Madison Square Garden for a rally.
Yeah.
And now you're going to do it at the end of October.
Not only Madison Square Garden, we're taking 4 or 5 arenas. We fill them up very fast. As you know, we took where the Islanders play in Long Island. We had, I guess, 23,000 people, and we could have sold it out literally 3 times. We had thousands of people. We had tens of thousands of people that couldn't get in. We put screens on the outside of the building so they.
Yeah, so basically what he said is, if a Jan 6th happens when I win, by the radical leftists, the Antifa guys who pretty much spent all of the year of 2020 burning down cities.
The summer of
also
love.
2016, DC was ransacked.
Yes. Also
then. That's when Antifa became a popularized term.
And
I had dealt with them in my political life. I had to deal with them on multiple occasions prior. But I remembered when all of a sudden Antifa became like a national thing. It was on the 2016 inauguration day.
Yeah. What he's responding to is,
or 2017,
if that kind of lawlessness happens, should the National Guard be calling? Now, if you asked, one of the biggest debates we had in the last 4 years was, why wasn't the National Guard called in to stop the January 6th rioters from entering the Capitol?
Pelosi.
And so he's saying is that maybe we have to use it against those guys. It depends on what actually happens.
There's also
so they turn that into him threatening his political opponents, which is fucking insane. Like, that is the weakest, stupidest, misquoted thing I could imagine. You can't say it's the same thing as going after individuals as a riot being stopped.
There's also in that every time David rants, Joe just starts rocking out. You guys don't see it on camera, but he's just like, yeah.
I need a Stream Deck cue.
There was a thing, the enemy within statement is a thing that Kamala has been parroting a lot.
Yep.
He thinks that there's an enemy within, and he wants to do away with the enemy within. He doesn't think Putin's our greatest enemy. He thinks we're his greatest. Like, she keeps making this quote. And it is a thing where he uses that term a lot. And I've always worried about that, of like, how is this going to be used against him? Because I agree with Trump. The biggest problem America has is people within our own government. That is the biggest problem that America has right now. And I think Trump is completely right about that. But there's the perception here that
he's talking about someone like the U.S. population or something.
Dictator on day one, blah, blah, blah.
He's going to oppress everyone.
That's why I keep making that joke.
Bloodbath if he loses. She
was just talking about the auto industry when he talked about that, right? But like, all of these things are misquotes. All of these things are getting completely taken out of context, and not understanding is like, and it's one of those things, if you are politically savvy and you watched the Trump administration, the biggest problem that Trump had was the people within the own government. The entire time he was getting framed for all these things, Russia hoax, all this stuff,
lied to by his generals.
Yeah, his generals. The generals were lying to the commander-in-chief about troop movements on the other side of the world.
And then they turn that into him saying he wishes he was Hitler.
Well,
right? Because he said, hey, my generals aren't loyal to me. I wish they were. He's the commander-in-chief. Their entire job is to do what he says. Is to do what he says. Like, that's the whole point of having a civilian in charge of him.
And he also says that he wants to fire these generals, and they get mad at him for that because they're lying to him about where our troops are dying.
And it's not even that. It's like, we're being partisans here. I just feel like I'm taking crazy pills when he's saying something so innocuous and straightforward that could be reported straightforward, that turns into he's a fascist who's trying to take over the government. I mean, it's the most ridiculous bullshit.
That's the best fucking thing ever.
But guys, he says mean things on Twitter.
True.
Have you seen some of those tweets?
If you're not going to vote for him because he says mean things on Twitter, fine. If you're not going to vote for him because you think he's going to become a military dictator, you're not paying attention. You're being manipulated by a media that hates you, that wants to manipulate you. The narrative control of what's her face, the Jobs lady, Laurene Powell Jobs, is being done. It's just being done by the Washington Post and the New York Times. Okay.
You feel better?
No. No.
I feel worse.
I never felt better.
Just a black pill, dude.
Yeah. All right. So
We
early
need some-
voting starts. We already got like the early reports kind of trickling across the internet. So we want to cover it live because we are not afraid of this topic. Vote integrity debate is beginning this week.
Maybe we'll eat our words and we realize we should be afraid of this topic.
Look, if it's going to be this, it takes us down. I'm impressed, to be honest with you.
Yeah. All right, so various online individual testimony starts to kick up this week, suggesting that with early voting, suggesting problems with voting in various areas. Republicans are ready to fight, though. A new article came out in the Wall Street Journal detailing a network of nearly 50 groups working on election integrity and funding of more than $140 to stop the steal 2.0.
This has effectively been Laura Trump's job.
Yeah,
too.
$140 million. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I said.
You said $140, but that's okay.
$140 whole dollars.
Oh, is that all it takes?
20s.
Wait, is that all it takes to secure the elections? Guys, I got this. I can do that.
Can I send you a Venmo? Is that will that work?
No, I'm banned from that. Sorry. I only do Bitcoin.
Only Bitcoin.
Sorry.
So we have some really great example of pre-programming I wanted to show you guys.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Wait, that's...
Joe's face.
We need Joe shock music now.
That's oh wait, is this your example? Okay, so Alex Jones tweets out happening now, and there's the classic, the for the audio only listeners, so it says what they did in 2020, and you have the classic, it's like the blue curve and the red curve, and the blue curve has when everything got shut down in the middle of the night, and there's the poop, pop-up that happens,
and then the blue curve's over the red curve.
Yeah, and then it says what they'll try to pull off in 2024, and it's just much more exasperated. Like, it's just huge.
Okay, it's exacerbated, guys.
Exacerbated.
Not exasperated?
Well, that's also a word, but it means a different thing. Exacerbated is to be made worse.
I know
Exasperated
words. I had
is,
the best words.
to be flustered or, without words.
It's Grammar with Joe. Okay,
Grammar with Joe.
No, I can't. No, I have the best words.
Joe's exacerbated at our use.
I am so exacerbated by your use of exasperated.
So
I've been saying that wrong my whole life, Joe.
No. It's okay. It's okay.
I use that word a lot too.
Well, I'm here for you. I'm here to make you sound smarter.
Could you have warned me about that 80 episodes ago?
I've tried.
So this is the best example of pre-programming I've found, because what it's specifically trying to do is, one, it's a prediction saying we're going to win by a lot this year and they'll have to steal it even bigger in order to steal it. Okay. It's the
biggest steal. The biggest steal.
It's the black pill version of too big to rig, right? Which is the idea that you have so many voter turnouts, you convert so many people that they can't rig the election because it's too big. The question is the way that it is kind of advanced ahead of it to predict what's going to happen so that you generate the response you want in the case that it does, right? In the case that this election outcome does look suspicious or doesn't turn out the way you want, you can therefore say, I already knew it was going to happen this way.
Pre-programming. Oh, David's a believer.
Different than a music video with what's her face in a bathtub full of diamonds.
But I will also say, and this is just the thing where to always be wary of, this is our foreign policy. Is rigging elections. Our foreign policy is rigging elections. The idea that an election can be rigged in very key precincts is not a crazy idea.
No.
It's not a crazy idea.
Well, in fact, we know it's happened before, right? We know mob.
We know mafias. Like there's a historical event called Bloody Tuesday where the mob came in and just like killed a bunch of people in a warehouse and stuffed ballots and things like that. Like these events have happened in human history, and it's just now there's probably more nuanced, less bloody ways for doing that.
And it's additional to that, you have to talk about the mythos around it, because what you're doing is you're attacking a pillar of someone's identity when you say, hey, there's something suspicious here. So people react religiously to that. They don't react with, wow, that's an interesting argument, Kyle. I wonder how that might, be grounded in evidence or argumentation.
It's one of those things where it's like, I pay attention to like Arizona politics because I was born in Maricopa County, and Maricopa County is always one of the places that has all these problems. There was just a lot of anomalies last year. It was just like them not using the right printer feed,
Yeah, the wrong size paper.
Yeah,
for
the wrong
printers.
size paper so that the dots weren't hitting the right places. So there's all these ballots that got thrown out, and then they had like the very specifically in the in like the very conservative area of Maricopa County, that precinct all of a sudden had all these delays that were going on, and all these people that took time off work to go then had to leave. Like there's a bunch of like those types of things that happen where you're just like, well, could be a lot of coincidences. Or there could be something else that's going on. And it's just like, I'm not even really one to say. It's just like, there's things to notice there, right? And I haven't dug in enough to look at it, right?
I mean, I'm curious, and I don't demand an answer from you guys right now, but, you know, to people who might be wondering this at home, right? Like, there were anomalies alleged in the 2020 election. We obviously know this, but they weren't heard by the courts. Was that because they were very specious arguments? Or was it because they were afraid to hear them? Do we know?
I think Trump had some bad lawyers on this too, though. Like there was that Sidney Powell chick, like who was bringing forward like really bad evidence.
Yeah,
things like that.
Some of it was poor execution, perhaps. Some of it was the mythos and violating the mythos, right? Like immediately a judge who was elected is going to walk in with a certain amount of like defensiveness. The other word's not going to. It is true. What I can say guarantee is that we under adjudicate elections for all kinds of reasons. And part of it is because by re-adjudicating the election, everyone's pissed. Right. And judges don't want that. Right. They want to be popular. They want to win their next re-election. And on top of that, there's the standard for evidence is very difficult to prove for the same reason that elections are difficult to sway. You have anonymous ballots. Mm-hmm. You don't have who voted for what as a public record. So you can't check the results against people's intent. So it's different. And then everything is based upon modeling and voter turnout and registration numbers, which themselves are like polling. They're guesses using consumer behavior data. They're not known variables that are as reliable as your base signal, which is voting. The thing that makes voting difficult to manipulate is also the thing that makes it hard to adjudicate if it's being done. Does that make sense?
The thing is, like, I feel like all that stuff's like really easily manipulatable. Like you just have like a small intelligence operation with a nice budget.
You don't even
manipulate
need
that shit.
There was a 2007 documentary called Hacking Democracy where like a bunch of computer science nerds hacked voting machines easily.
The Dominion stuff.
Yeah, to change the votes or to...
Can't say that word. Don't say
to count...
Yeah, you're right.
Get sued.
Bleep that up. Yeah. To either, overtly change votes from one candidate to the other, or to, basically mistabulate. For every 2 votes that come in, we really only tabulate 1.
Right.
Like, we know that this is possible. So the fact that we're saying like this is beyond reproach is kind of a little bit silly to me.
Totally agree.
Big Soros funding, he's been like the private equity arm of the State Department in places like Ukraine manipulating stuff.
Yeah,
right?
For a very long time.
Like that's not crazy. That's not crazy to just be like, well, that's a weird coincidence,
So what we want to do is cover this in the best face we can, and recognize that there are perverse incentives of both sides, right? Mm-hmm. Even if the election was going 100% legit, there would be a certain set of people who, because they only know other Republicans and they don't know that Democrats exist, all right, and they're not looking at the big numbers.
There's a lot of that.
They can get to the place where they're like, I can't believe this happened, right?
Right.
That phenomenon itself is also an error that we want to try to we got to try to pull that back. Well, on the other side of it, if people are like, there's no way it could ever be manipulated. It's like, that's also bullshit, right? Like you're not responding to the facts. Not only that, it's even worse than you said, Kyle, in the sense that we know not only that you have the private equity arm of the intelligence agencies, that they are supposed to only operate overseas. We know because of the censorship industrial complex and the Twitter files, they are now operating here using their NGOs. And we know that those NGOs are tied in with true the vote type efforts to increase confidence in democracy. If that was also a cover for manipulating elections or securing democracy,
they wrote articles gloating about it.
If that wasn't
crazy,
if that wasn't behind the scenes saying we're going to actually say that, but then manipulate it, that's what intelligence agencies do. So therefore, we're not saying that we know that that's what they're doing. We're just saying you can't dismiss it. You at least have to hear the argument out. And all I really want to encourage is openness here, beyond for both sides of that, because we don't know.
So if judges who are supposed to hear these kinds of cases are have counter incentives to not hear them because they want to remain popular, they want to win their next election, they don't want to piss people off.
They'd never be biased.
How are we supposed to expect that the judicial branch will secure and verify that elections are in some way legitimate? How do we know that?
Well, you don't want to put your judicial branch in charge of your elections.
Well,
that's what Brazil did.
Yeah,
but then who's supposed to make sure that it's true?
A blockchain.
I mean, that was actually.
I mean, the solution is technology. Like an open source blockchain is really the solution to this. But
or you could do paper ballots. Right, straight up paper ballots with manual counting and multiple rounds of manual counting.
Day of election.
But I like what you're saying, because if there was a portal for me to go in and say, okay, I cast this ballot, and then it's going to get counted and it's going to get put on a blockchain, and then I can go online and I can verify.
It's linked to your voter ID with your social security number.
And I can verify that singular transaction, not anybody else's vote, but just mine, to say, okay, my vote was counted on the blockchain as going for candidate A. That would make me feel a heck of a lot more confident.
It'd be public, and everyone can see. You could anonymize who's voting for who, but everyone can see how many votes go where. And you could have all the tech nerds be like, "Yep, no, looks legit."
Yeah,
right.
You could actually have third-party authentication because it's open source, unlike the voting system.
It's like it's a public ledger that anybody can view, and you could anonymize the votes with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we need it
based off of voter ID, and social security numbers, and you could check that with it. And you could even design it to the point where it's like, okay, yep, this social security number voted, this social security didn't vote, and you can be like, okay, that person's alive, right? Like you could do all that stuff.
But that would be so anathema to the Democrats, because that's like the ultimate form of voter ID.
Black people don't know how to use a computer.
Black people don't invest in crypto. Right? You just said black men are the highest minority group for investing in crypto.
But wait, that would you need an ID to invest in crypto. Wait a minute. KYC's everywhere nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Right?
That's racist.
Well, this doesn't even have to be crypto. Like, it can just be blockchain technology. Like,
this
that's all
episode
it has
brought to you by Dominion Chain.
Don't say the D word,
I'm
man.
sorry.
You're gonna get us sued.
Bennett, bleep that out.
By beep change. Not financial advice.
We need to get to the claims from this week, guys. We're never going to get through this topic. All right. So in Tarrant County, Texas, there are reports of voting machines flipping their votes on the paper printout. So this is an interesting.
What?
It's weird that they have this machine. It's actually a video, Kyle. That you select on a touch screen who you want to vote for, and then it prints out a ballot that you then go turn in.
Which video am I looking at? Sorry, I got
under pre-programming. Votes in Tarrant County, Texas, right there. X.
Yeah. Okay.
Killing me, Doug.
Sorry, I got all flustered about blockchain.
I was like, we are taking forever on this. I thought this could be a quick topic.
You know what? We don't owe it to anybody to make episode 100 quick. Okay,
yeah,
we're gonna take as much time as we want.
We want to do it.
And if you're still listening, thank you so much. We're glad you're here.
This is also part of the reason we're getting more long-winded as we get into this thing. And we just might need more episodes to fill in all those gaps.
All right, so if you go down and reset that video, Kyle.
It is this video.
Yeah.
Sometimes X gets all weird on when I pull up the threads.
Right.
Okay. Oh yeah, I saw this video. That's right. Yeah.
James Carpenter. I just voted in the White Settlement election. I voted for one president. Checked it on the video screen.
Can you guess which one?
Ballot. It had the other candidate's name on it.
That dude's voting for
Check your paper ballots, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Lucas Clark, and I voted here at White Settlement.
White Settlement
Library in Fort Worth. I was in line for about 45 minutes, and there were two people that came out and said that their ballots were changed. So everybody double check your printed out ballots. They go in there and they vote, and once they print out their ballot, it's different. So.
Thank you very much, sir.
So this was reacted to, obviously interesting.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
Eyewitness sort of, this is what I experienced. It's an anecdote, right? You need to hold it within that. There's reasons for people to lie for the exact pre-programming thing I just suggested with Alex Jones. That said, the counter-election...
Pre-programming only works when it goes in the other direction.
That's right.
Isn't that crazy, Joe?
That's right. That doesn't count.
Isn't that crazy?
Don't listen to him.
So, Tarrant County officials clear up ballot controversy. How good of a case this is? It seems like a dismissal. Basically, they said that there was a complaint. An election official said there's nothing to be worried about here. Move along. Because they looked into it. They said they looked into it, and they said it wasn't a problem.
That is the thing with a lot of these, and this is where oftentimes oftentimes the pushback, and this is where I always get flustered about this thing. I get exasperated.
That's correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
Is the dismissals are always just kind of like, we looked into it.
Yeah.
Well, I feel nothing there.
Well, I'm not exactly sure what they're supposed to say, right? Because this guy could have just fat fingered it, and he said he looked at it, but maybe he didn't, and then he saw it printed out, and he was like, oh,
So does he get to go back and redo that?
Yeah, well, he did. He got a new ballot.
He did. Okay,
yeah, that's
good.
Yeah, I just always find the dismissals of these things always feel very weak to me. Like there's always this kind of like, and part of it, it's just like
it's very dismissive.
Whenever I look at like mythological thinking about the systems that we all operate in, there's always this kind of like, man, like you're just crazy if you think that it's not working properly, because like everybody has this mythology around it. It's like, oh, there's no way here in America that things would not be working. Right. It becomes this thing. So it just becomes this like, I don't really care. I'm not going to look into it. And there's like, well, that news reporter said it's fine, so it's fine. And there's always this dismissive energy to it that I always like, it feels religious to me.
Well, right.
Every
and
time
I think it goes back to what you said originally about the integrity of elections, the veracity of elections is a mythology that we have to abide in the United States. And if we start to question that, then it really undermines a lot of things.
Well, and it also comes up, we went for 4 years about the Russian hoax and how Putin hacked our election, right? And that was broadcasted everywhere, and that was truth. It was broadcasted as truth. And then when you had Trump come in and be like, the elections were rigged, and he makes all these bombastic statements about it and all this stuff, it's just like, that is crazy. He's trying to undermine democracy.
Absolutely.
And you're like,
what's really going on here?
The Democrats have done the election was rigged thing so many times, and it was like fact that we are supposed to believe. And then it was just like, then Trump does it, and it's just like, it's crazy, dictator.
So I'll tell you what's pre-programming.
We secured the election from the dictator. It's like,
so one of the things here. Go ahead, pre-programming.
I'll tell you what's pre-programming is pundits saying on the left that no matter what happens, Trump is going to come out, and say the election was rigged if he doesn't win, right? Like to me, that's pre-programming, where it's like they're setting the narrative ahead of time so that if that happens, they can say, "See, we told you."
Yeah.
So, well, and
even if there was or wasn't actual voter fraud.
Yeah.
Now, so for example, the election administrator was asked for this in this quote article in the very bottom. Says, we have one individual who claimed that the vote that they selected on the machine was not the vote that was printed on the printed ballot. What we believe to have occurred is that the individual did make a selection on the machine, and that selection was printed on their ballot. When they went to cast their ballot, they checked it and realized that was not the vote they wanted. Right. So he's kind of taking it like, this is the system at work. The reason why I print these out after the selection is so that you can verify and make sure that the final thing that is submitted by paper ballot is the one that goes in.
That's great.
Now, not every county has that. So that's where the psychological, like, I don't feel like I'm being heard. It doesn't make a lot of sense. That's where that comes from. Right. And I think people should be sympathetic to that, even recognizing that maybe the circumstance in this particular individual was an error, right? And then they backwards worked their psychology to post hoc ergo propter hoc. I did a thing. I must have been right. It was the machine that was wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, we have to keep both in mind. I just want to emphasize that, like, keeping both in mind, I think, is what's most important here, because we can't also underestimate the degree to which people self-manipulate because they don't want to lose into justifying a steal as well.
Well, and there's a big thing. Like I warn this with like all my heavy MAGA friends all the time, of that is like, you just don't interact with left-wing people very often. So you can't imagine a world, especially in other states and things like that, right? You can't imagine a world where there's a bunch of people that really like Kamala Harris. Mm-hmm. Or are really energized by voting for Kamala Harris. And like, look at that Obama rally. That was a high energy rally right there, right?
I imagine that there are a lot of women who are particularly very energized about voting for Kamala Harris for multiple reasons.
So I predict Trump will win this election. That's my prediction. But that said, I could see a scenario in which Kamala wins. And if you can see no scenario in which the opposition wins, you are not doing politics, right? You're doing something else. You're doing dogmatism, right? You're not really engaging in the facts on the ground.
Unless there really is no scenario where a certain candidate wins, like say Victor or like a Walter Mondale or something.
Well,
Chase Oliver, for example.
Probably not going to win. Yeah, right. But you could delude yourself into saying
Jill Stein's got it this year.
This is her year, baby.
Yeah. All right. So, U.S. intel leak on Israeli plans to strike Iran again. Leaked top security documents for the Pentagon and National Security Agency, NSA leak, outline Israeli preparations for a major attack against Iran. Now, note, this is our spying on the Israelis. CNN reported on Saturday. The documents were published Friday on a Telegram channel that was said to be affiliated with Iran named, quote, Middle East Spectator, end quote. That claims it receives the information from a source within U.S. intelligence agency. So what's interesting here, we got the actual release from Dave DeCamp, and basically what it details out is Israeli troop movements and kind of a speculation about the way that they're organizing planes, troop movements, things like that, for coverage of the invasion of Lebanon and counterstrikes with Iran. What this indicates, to shorten it, is a continued invasion of Lebanon, though it started 22 days ago, right? Mm-hmm. With contender tit for tat with Iran, hoping to deter Iran from defending Lebanon and Hezbollah forces within Lebanon. So
Hezbollah, that's that little guy, right?
No. Hezbollah's a pretty big army.
I'm kidding. It was a joke about the little guy named Hezbollah. You guys know. Oh, come on, that was totally a joke.
Sorry,
I was like, what?
Come on, I saw it on the internet. I thought it was funny.
I know now that you say it. Now that you explain the joke, I get it.
Yeah. You guys are killing me.
Loser.
Idiot.
What a loser!
All right.
That's me. Here at your service. Dave DeCamp tweeting here with these documents. Here are the docs. Looks like it's just U.S. observations while spying on Israeli drills. Biggest thing, I think, is the acknowledgement of Israel having nuclear weapons. What do we got here? Explain this for me, guys.
So, yeah, what we have here is, a report of an intelligence officer to their superiors that was at some point in the process of making its way up the chain was diverted to Middle East Spectator on Telegram, which was then leaked to the press. Now, what's important to understand here are, one, what this indicates is that the Biden administration's effort to restrain Israel in advancing a war with Iran is not working. We'll get into that in a minute.
Or they're not trying?
Well, no, they are. The Biden's is saying he won here, but we'll get to that in a second. Sure. We'll come back around to it. Okay. And then the other part of that I think is more immediate is the Israeli attempt to basically, like, this is the offensive war that they want to fight. Like, they're doing the thing they want to do, and that's another part of the domestic consequences that Seymour Hersh wrote about this week and preceding weeks on how to think about what the dynamic is in Israel and what the incentives are to either get to peace or not. And then lastly, on Dave DeCant's point there, this is probably, as far as I understand, the first time we have written within internal documents within the U.S. State Department saying Israel has nukes.
Yeah, there's always been a lot of kind of talk about it, but I don't think there's ever been confirmation about it in any meaningful way.
Well, the Israelis will deny it.
Yeah.
Right? But they also believe in plausible deniability.
There's always been there's always been a ton of evidence towards that.
Yes.
But
yeah, we
there's
know
never
who
been confirmation.
No, we know who the spy was that released the nuclear plans to Israel. Like, that's been talked about. Mm-hmm. In fact, it was a major debate at the JFK administration.
Wasn't
one of the JFK conspiracy theories is that he was killed by Mossad because of his opposition to Israelis holding nukes. And that's just straight up. I'm not saying whether it's true or not, I don't know, but that's just one of the ones that's existed for a long time. Yeah. Because that was a major contentious issue at this time, was nuclear proliferation and the concern about the Israelis getting a hold of a nuke because
they might be inclined to use it.
Yeah. And once they're used it in war aggressively again, that could open Pandora's box.
And once Iran finally gets that nuke,
they'll be the real ones to use
That's where hell breaks out in the Middle East, right?
So,
that sounds exciting.
There's 5 years off, guys. 5 years off.
So there's been concern, I think, amongst perhaps I'll just call it the alternative media, maybe some conspiracy theories going on here that World War III will be used to disrupt in some way this election cycle in the United States. Are we feeling like it's too late for that? Or if something broke out in the Middle East, could there be a concern for...
So it's never too late for World War III.
A major war that draws America in would destroy Kamala's chances and Democrats broadly.
You think so?
Yeah. If I were Biden, that would be the one thing I'd fight. In fact, that's what the evidence, I think, suggests.
If you were Biden, that'd be the one thing you would fight.
to keep from happening. Yeah.
If
because you don't want the entire Ukraine.
I thought Biden was a Trump supporter.
I thought Biden put a Trump hat on.
Well, I mean, think about it this way: if you've been working since 2008 on a Eastern European play on behalf of the State Department and the CIA for the control of natural gas to enrich you and all your buddies forever and your family forever, that includes the current Ukraine fight we're fighting. You want that to continue. The one person who's going to stop that and probably give away everything that you've worked for is Trump. So the one thing you can't do is let things actually escalate into something that looks negative foreign policy-wise.
So it's in the, let's just call it the deep state's interest to prevent this conflict from escalating before the election.
Yeah, for sure.
There might be a counterpoint though too, is if the deep state sees Trump, like if the goal is escalation of conflict, which always seems to be the case for the neo-bros, right? And if you escalate it prior to Trump getting in and you think that Trump is going to be some sort of a bulwark from allowing the escalation to happen, you might want to get that to surge up before he can come in so he can't like prevent it from happening. And then he's stuck in a position where he's having to deal with it and all this stuff, right?
True.
Possible.
Very true.
But I think that underweighs the way I think they think about how Trump thinks about Putin. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I'm Charlie at the whiteboard.
Yeah. It's how they think about how Trump thinks about Putin.
How they think about how Trump thinks about how
Putin
they think.
has a claim on the Donbass.
Say that again.
How would they think about how Trump thinks about Putin? They think that Trump thinks that Putin has an authentic claim to the Donbass region where the natural gas and the Burisma contract that they're trying to extract in for the control of natural gas resources so that they can sell liquid natural gas to Europe forever.
Well, and Trump's going to make some form of a deal that, like, this tends to be...
will give away the Donbass. There's no doubt. That's so obvious.
That's going to be one of those things,
right? And
too,
Crimea won't be an issue of contention anymore, so they'll get control of more of the Black Sea than they otherwise would have. I mean,
and
all of
Trump's
those
rhetoric has been suggesting this. He's been saying this about Iran. He's been saying this about Ukraine, but he keeps continuing to say, it's just like the art of the deal is you're trying to make everybody happy, right? So like there's going to be concessions that happen, but like he even said on the Patrick Bet David podcast where he was saying Patrick was being like sanctions on Iran to try to like get the overthrow and bring it back to the 70s type of a deal.
But we know who the son is, so
yeah,
we'll just install him, man.
But Trump was just saying, like, Trump even just commented on that. He's just like, yeah, but we can't even control ourselves. Like, we can't control everything that's going on in Iran. And you're just like, okay, well, that's actually kind of uplifting to hear, where you're like, oh, a president that thinks that we can't control everybody in the world. Okay, that's crazy.
Well, yeah, I mean, he also articulated NATO expansion as a primary cause of the war in Ukraine. Like 3 weeks ago. So like really? That was a huge deal for me. I was like, oh my God.
I didn't know he had done that. That's great.
Now, does he understand nuclear power? No. So
you mean like the good kind of nuclear?
Yeah, when talking about this issue of Biden's attempt to restrain Israel, he basically came in and he had this to say about Biden's claim to victory of saying he got Israel not to strike the nuclear power plants or civilian infrastructure, just keep it to military targets.
I listened to Biden yesterday. Since I went under the wing, I used to go under the wing of the aircraft. Nobody ever did that before. I did it. All of a sudden, Biden started, but he only takes like a half a question. Usually can't answer it. But they asked him, "What do you think about Iran? Would you hit Iran?" And he goes, "As long as they don't hit the nuclear stuff." That's the thing you want to hit, right? I said, I think he's got that one wrong. Isn't that the one you're supposed to hit? I mean, it's the biggest risk we have. Nuclear weapons, the power of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt the entire military, jets, everything. I built it, including.
So yeah.
So was he conflating nuclear like weapons sites with nuclear power plants?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Which is a typical like misconception. In order to have a nuclear bomb, you have to enrich uranium up to at least 80%, if not 90%, to have effective nuclear weapons. Most nuclear power plants run at under 40% enrichment. Now, all of the JCPOA that he pulled us out of was to make sure that they couldn't do that without additional monitoring, including remote monitoring, literally installing cameras for 24/7 surveillance of nuclear power plants within Iran. Iran is still obeying by the JCPOA.
What is that?
Oh, sorry. That was the nuclear deal of Obama, the Obama era, that cut with Iran, giving them back their own money that we took from them, stole from them after the coup against the Shah in the 1970s.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So to rewind it back, Obama comes in. He says his big win as president is going to be cutting this new deal with Iran to make sure they don't get a nuclear weapon. Part of Iran's request was, well, we want our own money back. We had all this money in foreign banks all over the world for our oil sales. We want it back. He gives them that money. He also does some other stuff with trade, allows them to common market trade, SWIFT access, all that kind of stuff. And then Iran now has to do all this extra inspections of its nuclear program. All the neocons say this is the worst thing ever. Trump comes in and be like, oh, you want that, neocons? No problem. He pulls us out of the JCPOA. And then we get basically restarting the nuclear debate with Iran and all that kind of stuff. Because he said it wasn't a strong enough sanctions deal. I don't know how you can make it stronger. There's never been any case that I've heard of how you can make it stronger. It's just accused and gone on. So there's that kind of element there that's happening where the neocons are trying to bring in on the behalf of Bibi, saying, no, you need to attack the nukes. And obviously Trump is reflecting that, which is really unfortunate. It's a bad signal. And then the other side of this, is Bibi doesn't seem to be caring what Biden says, right? He said not to do this. And then, they struck the military targets. They're still in an escalatory spiral. There's not really end in sight for actual pressure for a ceasefire. The Biden administration said that they're asking for a ceasefire. They have people negotiating on the ground. And then every report from people on the ground that are supposed to be negotiating this ceasefire are leaking out saying that we have no actual authority to cut a deal. And Bibi has no reason to. Now, what came out this week was that sources within Israel are reporting to Seymour that Bibi's now getting more support within Israel after he launched the invasion into Lebanon. Lebanon?
Yeah.
Am I saying that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lebanon.
Yeah.
And that's a huge negative, unintended consequence as well.
Say that again. Say that again.
So you would think that starting a second side to the war would be bad, but it actually became good for the people, especially after they killed the Hamas leader who was in Lebanon, Sinwar. I can't remember his first name. But
good for who?
Well, good for Bibi.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all celebrating in the streets of Israel right now on that. And so that means we're unlikely to see any stop to this. It's going to keep going.
So now it has public support, and it's only going to continue.
So what I think most people anticipated was the global pressure on the tragedies happening across Gaza, the global pressure on additional combative areas, right, where you're literally pinched between two different areas. Would mean that you could only do so much in Lebanon before it would become unpopular. But in fact, the opposite has happened, at least in this time frame that we're talking about in the last 2 weeks, or in 22 days since the invasion of Lebanon. We've seen a decline and then now an increase. So we're now at another high point. Will Bibi be able to continue the war? It looks like it.
Interesting.
Right now. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah. For all the people that are being, displaced and civilians killed. It's a terrible thing.
Yeah, it's crazy how it's covered. I mean, there was an article this week that came out that said how terrible it was of these Israeli soldiers' PTSD after they ran people over with bulldozers.
Oh,
right. And you're like, the whole angle was just so crazy. I thought about posting in the Discord. I was like, that's just depressing, and I don't want to make everyone depressed, but it's crazy.
It's a good way to end the episode.
No, sorry.
Depressing.
Yeah, just a little
episode 100, everybody.
So as we progress to World War III,
well, hey,
here's some depressing news about people being run over by bulldozers. Have a good one. To
play you out. Well, we did promise a World War III super episode for 100 last week, so here we are. We
did it.
We covered everything this episode. Trump went to McDonald's. People are run over by bulldozers.
Kamala's stoked about Dick Cheney, and so is Tim Walz. We got it all.
Eminem's not afraid anymore.
No, he's not.
Not afraid.
And neither are we, because we crossed a killer milestone, and we thank you for your support in helping us get here, you guys. Triple digits. Did you say double or triple?
I said triple.
Okay. Triple digits, guys, and nowhere to go but up. We really look forward to having you along on this journey as we continue to grow this podcast. We got a lot of great things in store. We hope you stick around. If you're still here and listening, You guys are the real ones. If you're not already in the Discord, please do. Check it out. Link is in the description. Like the episode. Follow us wherever you're listening. This has been Human Reaction, episode 100. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for tuning in to Human Reaction. Please be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and give us a review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you want to become a member and support the show financially, check out humanreactionpod.com. And remember,
Remember when there weren't so many.